Chapter 1801. The group discussed for a long time and finally reached a unanimous decision: they had to return to the human world. Whether Hao Tianwang had taken drastic measures or not, they had to take precautions. As for who would return to the human world, Tang Zheng thought for a while and came to a conclusion. The Dragon Clan would continue to stay in the Outland. The Righteous Faction, the Martial Artists, and the Sorcerer Clan would return to the human world with Tang Zheng. The Righteous Faction had long wanted to return to the human world. This was their long-cherished wish for hundreds of years. Last time, Tang Zheng's cultivation was not enough. This time, his cultivation was enough to teleport everyone. Tian Chanzi had also gathered the hearts of the Righteous Faction. He did not have to worry about them returning to the human world and causing unrest. After hearing Tang Zheng's decision, some were happy and some were sad. Xiao Bai had always wanted to spend more time with Tang Zheng, but now that Tang Zheng was going to leave, he could not help but feel a little reluctant. The Righteous Faction was eager and excited. Tang Zheng flew up to the 9 heavens and opened a spatial door with a wave of his hand. Everyone filed in and looked around curiously. Unfortunately, it was dark all around and they could not see anything. A door appeared in front of them and light appeared. When they stepped through the spatial door, they were shocked by the scene in front of them before they could express their excitement. "What is this?" Exclamations rose one after another. Everyone was at a loss. Tang Zheng was at the back. When he saw this scene through the spatial door, he was immediately attracted. His heart thumped and he had an ominous premonition. Whoosh! He rushed out as fast as he could. What's going on? He only had time to ask before he was shocked by the scene in front of him. Earth-shaking changes had taken place between heaven and earth. The violent airflow showed that the human world had undergone a drastic change. "Look over there." Tian Chanzi pointed to the sky in the distance and exclaimed. Everyone looked over, and their attention was immediately drawn. A towering mountain peak appeared in the distance, as if it was about to touch the dome of heaven. "That's..." Tang Zheng gasped and was speechless for a long time. His heart was in turmoil and he could not calm down at all. "Mount Buzhou!" The Emperor of Heaven shouted. The others also saw that it was Mount Buzhou, but it was quite different from the original Mount Buzhou. There were no strange craggy peaks, but instead, there were pitch-black bones. Even though they were quite a distance apart, Tang Zheng recognized He Jiyu with a single glance. As if struck by lightning, he exclaimed, "Hao Tianwang is here." Hao Tianwang's scheme in the realm beyond heaven had failed, and he had actually set his sights on the mortal realm. The key to the eternal night technique was that pagoda, and the key to the pagoda was the Heaven and Earth Mystic Stone. Wasn't the Heaven and Earth Mystic Stone in his Sumeru world? How did he build the tower? Mount Buzhou. Tang Zheng sucked in a breath of cold air and completely understood. Unexpectedly, there were also black stones of heaven and earth in Mount Buzhou. He thought that he had collected all the black stones of heaven and earth, but he did not know that he had overlooked the largest black stone of heaven and earth. "We have to stop Hao Tianwang." Tang Zheng gave a loud roar and rushed out like a bolt of lightning. "Quick, stop all of this." The others also roared and rushed toward Mount Buzhou. The sky above Mount Buzhou gradually turned black. In broad daylight, the sky had actually turned black. It was as if a dark cloud had floated over and blotted out the sun. Everyone knew that this was not a dark cloud, but rather Hao Tianwang's divine ability at work. "We must not let the eternal night descend." Tang Zheng cried out loudly. Once the mortal realm turned into eternal night, then Hao Tianwang would be able to control the mortal realm. At that time, it would truly be beyond redemption. Hao Tianwang stood at the peak of Mount Buzhou. Of course, he also saw the spatial door in the distance. He also saw a large group of people walking out from it. His eyes lit up as the corners of his mouth curled up. He sneered, "They've come to throw away their lives again. It'll be convenient for me to turn them into materials to build my pagoda." His pupils constricted as he stared at Tang Zheng, who was charging at the front. He said with a murderous aura, "Tang Zheng, it's you again. You're still haunting me. I'd like to see how you're going to stop me this time. The Heaven and Earth Mystic Stone in Mount Buzhou is even more powerful. The heavens are helping me." Do you think it'll be that easy to stop me? Hao Tianwang was full of confidence. As he saw Tang Zheng approaching, a black palm descended from the sky and ruthlessly slapped towards Tang Zheng. Boom! Tang Zheng was directly slapped into the ground. A huge pit appeared in the 100,000 mountains. When the black palm disappeared, a figure rushed into the sky. How could Tang Zheng die so easily? Hao Tianwang did not expect to kill Tang Zheng with one slap. He said proudly, "This is just the appetizer. Next is the main course." Whoosh! Chains fell from the 9 heavens one after another. Before Tang Zheng could resist, the chains firmly locked onto Tang Zheng and tied him up. Ha ha ha, Tang Zheng, so what if you're in the Saint Realm? What can you do to me this time? Hao Tianwang shouted proudly. Tang Zheng sneered, "Do you think you can trap me like this?" Bang, bang, bang. As soon as he finished speaking, a light flashed and the chains were all broken. Tang Zheng had a Xuanzang sword in his hand. Wherever the Xuanzang sword pointed, it was invincible. "Break!" Tang Zheng shouted. The Xuanzang sword broke through the air. With a flash of sword light, everything disappeared. Only this sword light was left between heaven and earth. A big net fell from the sky and trapped the Xuanzang sword. But it did not last long. The big net broke and the Xuanzang sword went straight in, piercing into the 9 heavens. Fart! The darkness in the sky was torn open and the sun shone down again. Tang Zheng curled the corner of his mouth and said, "How does it feel?" Hao Tianwang was furious. "Can you stop me like this?" Hao Tianwang waved his hand and the darkness in the sky quickly expanded, covering the sky and the sun. Those who were rushing over were covered by the darkness. Whoosh! 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 These people could not stand steadily. They were covered by a huge suction force and flew quickly toward the tower. They hit the tower and were immediately swallowed by the darkness. Almost in the blink of an eye, they were turned into black bones. The tower grew taller again, as if it was really going to reach the sky. The darkness in the sky expanded a little further. More and more people could not stand steadily and flew toward the tower. Tang Zheng was furious and shouted, "How dare you do this in front of me?" He waved his hand and a black hole appeared. The strong suction force covered these people and firmly held them. The two forces fought and stabilized these people. "Save them!" Tang Zheng roared at the Emperor of Heaven and the others. They seemed to have woken up from a dream. The experts immediately took action and rescued them back to their own camp. These people were seeing Hao Tianwang for the first time, and it was also their first time seeing the Evernite art. All of them were deeply shaken. Immediately, they somewhat understood why Tang Zheng and Little White were facing Heavenly King Hao as if they were facing a great enemy. This was truly too powerful an enemy, and could not be underestimated in the slightest. Seeing that his men were temporarily safe, Tang Zheng did not give Hao Tianwang the chance to repeat the same trick. He raised his sword and charged toward Hao Tianwang. Chapter 1802. Tang Zheng raised his sword and soared into the sky. The sword light seemed to split the sky and earth, splitting the darkness into two and rushing straight to Heavenly King Hao. Heavenly King Hao stared at him and roared, "Eternal night, descend." Swoosh! The dark light fell from the sky, and the area of the 100,000 mountains was completely plunged into darkness. The black bones on the tower were eerie and terrifying, making people shudder. "What's going on? I can't move." "Yeah, I can't move either." Cries of alarm rang out everywhere. Many people were frightened and struggled with all their might, but it was all in vain. An invisible force imprisoned them. Tang Zheng was shocked. He realized that the eternal night descent was even more powerful this time. All the dark places were under Hao Tianwang's control. Those people's cultivation could not resist this kind of magic at all. "Ha ha ha, Tang Zheng, I have to thank you for sending me so many raw materials. These people's cultivation is not bad, much stronger than those ordinary people. They can help me achieve great success sooner." Heavenly King Hao laughed maniacally. His entire body was shrouded in darkness, and he disappeared. When the hidden mystic sword slashed, the attack missed. Only Hao Tianwang's voice could be heard echoing in all directions, making people's hearts tremble. Screams rose one after another. It was as if a pair of dark hands were dragging people to the tower. The darkness increased people's fear. Especially the righteous people. They had not finished digesting the joy of returning to the human world, and they encountered such an unforeseen event. Their minds were in chaos. The strength of the righteous people was uneven. Many people could not resist the eternal night descent. People kept disappearing, which also increased their fear. This can't go on. Tang Zheng shouted and roared, "Everyone, listen to my order. Unite and form a circle. Those with high cultivation will stay outside and those with low cultivation will stay inside to resist Hao Tianwang's attack." Tang Zheng had an extremely high authority among the sorcerer tribe and martial artists. As for the righteous faction, due to the lack of unity, his authority was greatly reduced. After he gave the order, everyone gathered in one place and formed a huge formation. The people with the highest cultivation were guarding the outermost layer. In an instant, the multicolored treasures shook the heavens and the earth as they attempted to tear apart the endless darkness. Heavenly King Hao's roar was deafening. Shackles fell from the sky one after another. They were like black dragons, charging into the crowd. The Emperor of Heaven and a few other experts took the lead. "Sword, come." The Emperor of Heaven stretched out his hand and roared. A sword appeared out of thin air. The sword light was like moonlight, emitting a silver radiance. "Sword, go." The Emperor of Heaven thrust his sword forward. With just one thrust, many sword shadows appeared in the world, interweaving into a huge sword formation. The sword formation pushed forward, and the air was torn apart. Bang bang! The chains broke, but the darkness came and came back. The chains were reforged and changed, enveloping the long sword. The sword light instantly dimmed down. The Emperor of Heaven's gaze turned cold, he chanted a few times, and the sword light rose again. Wang! With a loud sound like a thunderclap, an arrow shot out from the heaven-shocking bow and struck a chain, causing it to crack inch by inch. Li Xiaotian's eyes lit up. This was the power of the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrows. She had been practicing for a long time, and today, she had finally released her brilliance and power. Seeing this, many warriors cheered, cheering for Li Xiaotian. Wu and the rest did not dare to fall behind. They rushed out and launched a fierce counterattack. Tang Zheng was gratified, but his heart was also in his throat. He thrust his sword forward, and in that moment, the sky was torn apart, and huge cracks appeared. Tang Zheng's attention was focused on the tower, and he shouted, "Mountain God, come out." He still remembered that the mountain god had helped him fight against a strong enemy. How Tianwang had caused the Buzhou mountain to become like this. How could the mountain god sit idly by and do nothing? Since he could not destroy it from the outside, he naturally wanted to awaken the mountain god. He wanted to use both methods, both inside and outside, and truly defeat Hao Tianwang. The mountain god did not respond. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that something had happened? Hao Tianwang sneered in disdain. "Are you looking for the mountain god? Why isn't it reacting?" Tang Zheng's face tensed up, and asked, "Where did it go?" Hao Tianwang said proudly, "It's in this tower, you can go find it yourself." With that said, a black door opened with a loud bang, standing in front of Tang Zheng. A huge suction force instantly enveloped Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's body trembled, crazily urging his martial arts, trying to resist this terrifying force. "What is this?" Tang Zheng scolded. "Don't you want to find the mountain god? He's inside." Whoosh! Tang Zheng uncontrollably flew towards the door, but at the critical moment, Tang Zheng held on, and with a big hand, two black holes appeared, one on the left and one on the right, instantly cancelling out the suction force of the door. "Hey, your martial arts is interesting, but can you really resist it?" Hao Tianwang was full of confidence, suddenly appearing behind Tang Zheng, ready to launch a fatal blow. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up, the corner of his mouth hooked up into a sneer, and said, "You're finally here." Heavenly King Hao slapped out with his palm, and a gigantic black palm flew out from his palm. It was as if Mount Tai was pressing down on him, directly pressing down on Tang Zheng's back, as if it was going to break his spine. Hao Tianwang did not care at all, as if he was about to push Tang Zheng through the door. Suddenly, a loud sound rang out. A palm landed on his back first, and the other party had actually evaded his intuition. Who is it? Hao Tianwang staggered forward, hurriedly turned his head, and loudly asked. A person appeared. Impressively, it was Tang Zheng. Hao Tianwang's heart trembled, and from the corner of his eyes, he saw another Tang Zheng, immediately, as if he was struck by lightning, and asked, "Why are there two Tang Zheng? What do you think?" Tang Zheng sneered. Hao Tianwang was aghast, and suddenly realized, "This is not you, but you're Yuanying, right? You can actually create a doppelganger, and let Yuanying leave your body." Hao Tianwang was really shocked by this discovery. He also had his own primordial spirit, but it was limited to the Zifu, and he could not let Yuanying leave his body. He was not sure what kind of lethality Yuanying would have after leaving the body, but one thing was without a doubt, and that was the opponent's fighting strength would greatly increase. Hao Tianwang did not have time to think carefully, and could only urge his martial arts to fight back. The Yuanying doppelganger was like a hot knife through butter, and with one palm, it smashed Hao Tianwang's counterattack, and the other palm hit Hao Tianwang's back. Puff! Hao Tianwang spat out a mouthful of blood, and staggered forward. Tang Zheng's eyes were sharp, and he quickly tried to give Hao Tianwang the finishing blow, but when the hidden profound sword touched Hao Tianwang's body, Hao Tianwang suddenly disappeared without a trace. Tang Zheng looked around, but other than the boundless darkness, there was no trace of Hao Tianwang. Where is he? Tang Zheng was bewildered, and looked at Yuanying in horror. When he escaped to the heaven realm, he was unwilling to come out. How did he come out this time? Yuanying looked at Tang Zheng indifferently, and understood his thoughts, and said, "Let's talk about our matters later, and deal with Hao Tianwang first. He has merged into the darkness, and we must find him, otherwise, he will destroy the world." Chapter 1803. You're finally willing to show yourself. I thought you'd hide in the heaven realm for the rest of your life. Tang Zheng looked at Yuanying and said coldly. Yuanying was not under his control, which made him very depressed. After all, Yuanying was a part of his body, but in the end, it went against him. No one could accept this result. How could Yuanying not know Tang Zheng's thoughts? She said indifferently, "Do you want to capture me or deal with Hao Tianwang? Choose for yourself." Tang Zheng snorted and said, "We'll settle our accounts later. Let's deal with Hao Tianwang first." Yuanying smiled faintly, not surprised at all, and said, "Then let's work together. Don't dawdle." Whoosh! Yuanying rushed out, and the darkness immediately swarmed over, surrounding Yuanying. Yuanying immediately disappeared. The others looked at the two identical Tang Zheng, and all of them widened their eyes in disbelief. Everyone, stay calm and defeat the enemy. Everyone was greatly encouraged. Two Tang Zheng were always stronger than one. This time, Hao Tianwang would definitely lose. Boom boom boom. Earth-shattering sounds came from the darkness. The shock waves fell like thunder, tearing the earth apart. The 100,000 mountains became a scene of devastation, as if the end of the world had arrived. "I'm coming." Tang Zheng roared and also joined the battle. He rushed into the darkness and saw Yuanying and Hao Tianwang fighting fiercely. Yuanying and Tang Zheng's cultivation were the same. The two experts of the Saint Realm attacked together. Even if Hao Tianwang had the magical power of eternal night descent, he gradually showed signs of weakness. Hao Tianwang was unwilling to lose and roared angrily. "Pu!" The hidden profound sword slashed his chest, and a huge wound appeared on his left and right. It was a shocking sight. Hao Tianwang let out a few heart-wrenching screams. He fought and retreated. The tower was on the verge of collapse, as if it could collapse at any time. The others were safe. Hao Tianwang could not multitask. He could only use all his strength to deal with Tang Zheng and Yuanying. Tang Zheng and Yuanying were overjoyed. They took advantage of the victory and pursued. Bang! Yuanying's palm hit Hao Tianwang and sent him flying into the tower. The tower shook violently, as if it was about to collapse. Suddenly, a surge of energy descended from the sky and landed on Heavenly King Hao's body. Heavenly King Hao started to tremble violently. Tang Zheng and the Yuanying stopped their attacks and looked at this scene in confusion. When they looked up again, the sky was empty and there was no one else. However, the two of them were keenly aware of how powerful this energy was. Who is it? Yuanying asked in a low voice. Tang Zheng shook his head and said, I don't know. Suddenly, his pupils shrank. He pointed at Hao Tianwang and exclaimed, Look! Heavenly King Hao and the tower gradually merged into one. Oh no, someone is helping him. Yuanying shouted anxiously, we have to stop him. Whoosh! The hidden profound sword slashed out fiercely. Hao Tianwang's light flashed. He completely merged with the tower and disappeared. The hidden profound sword slashed the tower. Sparks flew, but it did not hurt Hao Tianwang. Ha ha ha. A burst of wild laughter came from the top of the tower. Tang Zheng and Yuanying looked up and saw Heavenly King Hao standing majestically at the top of the tower. His previous dejection was swept away, and his aura had undergone an earth-shattering change. He has broken through to the Saint Realm. The two of them could not believe it. In the blink of an eye, Hao Tianwang had changed so much that he broke through the most difficult line. How did you do it? Hao Tianwang laughed wildly and said, You have someone to help you. Am I alone? Ha ha ha, my helper is more powerful than you. You're dead. Tang Zheng and Yuanying looked at each other and thought of the same thing. They asked, Is it the energy just now? That's right, Heavenly King Hao said proudly. Tang Zheng quickly thought about it. Who else in this world had this kind of strength that could actually force a person to break through the most difficult boundary? Even Tang Zheng could not do it. A light flashed in his mind. Tang Zheng seemed to wake up from a dream and exclaimed, It's the way of heaven, isn't it? The way of heaven? Hao Tianwang frowned. It seemed that this was the first time he had heard of these two words. Yuanying and Tang Zheng had the same point of view and agreed, it must be the way of heaven. He hasn't given up and is mixed up with Hao Tianwang. He taught you the descent of eternal night ability, right? I don't know who he is, but seeing that all of you agree and are facing a great enemy, it must be him. Way of heaven, my good helper, thank you. Hao Tianwang shouted to the sky. The sky was silent. There was no response. Tang Zheng and Yuanying felt the pressure double. They had always thought that it was enough to deal with Hao Tianwang. They never thought that they had thought too simply. The way of heaven had already secretly made a move. He was their biggest enemy. It was a pity that the way of heaven had no way to find him. Some of the others knew a little about the way of heaven. When they heard this, they were already pale with fright. It turned out that the scales of victory were not tilted to their side. There was still a bitter battle waiting for them. Tang Zheng, so what if it's the way of heaven? Since he wants to destroy this world, then we will resist to the end. We want to see how powerful he is. Someone was filled with righteous indignation. He was not frightened by the way of heaven. Tang Zheng and Yuanying's morale was greatly boosted. That makes sense. Let's fight. Yuanying rushed out. Tang Zheng, however, was not in a hurry to charge forward. He pointed his finger towards the sky, causing specks of light to appear in the dark sky. Starlight. The darkness could not cover up all the starlight. Celestial chess. Someone shouted, unable to hide his excitement. The power of the celestial chess was well known. Who was stronger between the celestial chess and the descent of eternal night? The starlight flickered more and more fiercely. A lot of light was restored between heaven and earth. Wu and Li Xiaotian had already set up the heavenly chess in Dianan. However, the two of them were unable to fully use the heavenly chess. This made it convenient for Tang Zheng. The mighty power of the stars descended from the sky and clashed with the power of darkness. Immediately, ripples appeared in the sky, and the sky became like the surface of water, completely in the shape of ripples. Everyone's bodies relaxed. The imprisonment of the darkness disappeared. Immediately, it attracted a burst of cheers. What's going on? Hao Tianwang ignored the attack of Yuanying. He raised his head and looked at the sky. He could not believe his eyes. This was a kind of energy that he had never seen before. It made him tremble in fear. This is the heavenly chess, Tang Zheng replied. Heavenly chess? Hao Tianwang was confused, but he did not dare to underestimate it. He did not see any movement, but the tower quickly grew taller and soared into the sky with him. It was as if it wanted to break through the power of the stars. Tang Zheng and Yuanying followed like shadows and attacked together. Boom, boom, boom. The power of darkness and the power of the stars clashed. The sky shook and tore open. It was as if the sky was about to collapse. Chapter 1804. Under the celestial chess, the huge 100,000 mountains was completely destroyed by the impact of the power of the stars and the power of darkness. There was not a single undamaged plant in the ruins. They were all cut off from the roots. The ground was like the surface of the moon. There were many holes, some so deep that the bottom could not be seen. It was like a sinkhole. The river was completely cut off and changed. It was beyond recognition. The primeval forest of Xanadu was completely destroyed. Because almost no one lived in the 100,000 mountains. No one died because of this, but it was still a disaster. Many creatures suffered unexpected disasters. Dianan was on the edge of the 100,000 mountains. It was also in danger. Fortunately, Dianan was protected by the celestial chess. It still had some self-protection power, so it would not immediately become like the 100,000 mountains. But if the battle continued, Dianan might not be spared. At that time, who knew how many innocent people would die? Tang Zheng was very clear about this. After he saw the scene of the confrontation between the power of darkness and the power of stars, he immediately understood that Hao Tianwang, who had greatly increased his power, was even more terrifying. He could really threaten the survival of the human world. He glanced at Yuanying. With just a glance, the two of them immediately connected. Yuanying said resolutely, "You and I can only really end all of this if we merge." Tang Zheng knew that there was definitely danger. Yuanying already had her own consciousness. Tang Zheng could not control her. If the two of them merged, he was not completely sure whether Yuanying would do anything. But for the survival of the human race, he had to accept this. The tower was almost at the top of the sky. The sky was close at hand. Hao Tianwang stood on the tower. His figure gradually became blurred. He seemed to be merging with the tower. He was the tower, Mount Buzhou. The sky was getting darker and darker. The area was rapidly expanding. Once the sky was completely dark and the eternal night descended, it would be even more troublesome. Ha ha ha, Tang Zheng, so what if you have Yuanying's doppelganger? I have the eternal night. How can your little magical power be my opponent? Hao Tianwang was immensely proud of himself. His arrogant laughter spread far and wide in the sky. It was like a clap of thunder that resounded throughout the entire world. At this moment, everyone in the world heard this voice. That thick murderous aura and unchallengeable aura were intimidating. Thump. Many people directly knelt on the ground, suppressed by this aura to the point where they couldn't even lift their heads and breathe. Everyone looked up at the sky. Although it was too far away and many people couldn't see it, there were people who could, and those were the armies of the various countries. They realized the severity of the situation. Many countries directly launched missiles and even nuclear bombs. One after another, huge warheads flew over. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank as he saw the approaching warhead. That might not be useful. Tang Zheng sighed inwardly. Hao Tianwang had never seen a warhead before, so he didn't know what it was. However, he instinctively knew that it was nothing good. He waved his hand, and a dark energy enveloped the warheads. Boom! The warheads exploded, and a huge shockwave spread out in all directions. The tower bore the brunt of the impact and shook violently a few times. Hao Tianwang immediately understood that these warheads contained powerful energy. Humph, you want to stop me with this thing? He curled his lips in disdain. Then, he came up with a plan and said, "Let's go there." With a wave of his sleeve, the dark energy enveloped the warheads and they flew straight to Dianan. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank as he roared, "Shameless, you want to destroy Dianan." Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The warheads exploded high in the sky. Mushrooms rose into the air like huge mushrooms, growing vigorously in the sky like bamboo shoots after the rain. When the countries saw this scene, they were completely stunned. Even the most powerful weapons could not do anything to Hao Tianwang. Was the end of the world really coming? However, when they saw Tang Zheng's figure, they had a glimmer of hope again. They pinned all their hopes on Tang Zheng and prayed for him silently, hoping that he could create a miracle and save the world from the crisis of destruction. At this moment, no one doubted Tang Zheng anymore. They all regarded him as their savior. "We can't wait any longer. Merge." Tang Zheng no longer hesitated and roared at Yuanying. The two of them rushed to each other from two directions. In the blink of an eye, the two of them merged into one. Suddenly, a dazzling light was emitted from Tang Zheng's body. His aura underwent an earth-shattering change and soared in a straight line. Hao Tianwang's face suddenly changed when he saw this scene. With a whoosh, his figure disappeared and completely merged with the tower. "Go to hell, Tang Zheng." Hao Tianwang's voice exploded like rolling thunder. A pitch-black giant hand reached out from the tower and grabbed at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng held the air with both hands. The hidden sword immediately appeared in his hand. The hidden sword flew with the wind, and in the blink of an eye, it became a huge sword that crossed the sky. At this moment, everyone stared at the huge sword. The power of the stars fell from the sky and gathered on the hidden sword. Suddenly, streaks of starlight appeared on the sword. The hidden sword seemed to have turned into the Milky Way. Streaks of starlight flickered like mysterious stars. "Break!" Tang Zheng roared. The hidden sword fell from the sky. It was very slow, but with every drop, its aura became stronger. When the hidden sword fell on the tower, the power and aura of the hidden sword were condensed to the peak. It was like a hot knife through butter. At this moment, there was no sound in the world. Because all sound was completely covered by the sound of this attack. Dazzling light burst. Everyone closed their eyes, unable to look directly at the scene. Boom, boom, boom. Countless monitoring devices were completely destroyed. The images disappeared. Darkness spread from the tower and completely swallowed the light of the hidden sword. Everyone opened their eyes again and saw that the sky was only left with endless darkness. No one knew what was going on. Everyone was on tenterhooks. Their hearts seemed to have fallen into a bottomless abyss. They all held their breaths. How was Tang Zheng? Did he win or lose? They could not accept Tang Zheng's failure. The world could not accept Tang Zheng's failure. He was the world's last line of defense. If he was defeated, then the world was truly finished. Looking at the thick darkness that could not be dispersed, many people's hearts became more and more desperate. The flame of hope was gradually extinguished. At this moment, the world was watching. What happened in the darkness, what the result was, no one could say for sure. No one knew when the result would be. The only thing they could do was wait. Chapter 1805. The darkness gradually receded, as if the dark clouds that had shrouded everyone's hearts were gradually dispersing. Big and small eyes stared at the sky without blinking. Swoosh! A sword light pierced through the darkness and appeared in everyone's vision. Oh, oh, oh! The cheers were earth-shattering and resounding throughout the universe. Every world, every language, and every country cheered from the bottom of their hearts. The Emperor of Heaven and the others waved their arms excitedly. They were closer than the others and could better understand the tragedy and danger of this battle. They cared more about Tang Zheng's life than the others, not only because he was the savior, but also because he was everyone's friend and family. Dezang of Gugurio chanted the name of Buddha, solemnly, and recited the Ksitagarbha Sutra, saying, "Tang Zheng has indeed lived up to our expectations. When I taught him the Ksitagarbha Sutra, it was the wisest decision." Fang Sheshe and Yi Dingdang's eyes were full of splendor as they silently cheered for their beloved. The darkness completely dissipated, and everything was completely revealed. Immediately, many people gasped and exclaimed in disbelief. The tower disappeared. In its place was Mount Buzhou. Mount Buzhou appeared again, but it was taller, as if it had taken off its outer layer and revealed its true appearance. The cheers continued until Hao Tianwang's voice rang out again, this time from Mount Buzhou. "Tang Zheng, you deserve to die. You actually broke my divine ability." Tang Zheng stood in the air, holding the hidden sword in his hand. The hidden sword had returned to its original appearance, and he stared at Mount Buzhou with a burning gaze. Only he knew the danger and difficulty of that attack. He and Yuanying became one, and their power increased exponentially, almost reaching the peak of the saint realm. That feeling was indescribably mysterious. The state of being one with heaven and man as one with the sword made him forget to go back and reminisce for a long time. However, although this attack broke Hao Tianwang's magic, it did not really kill him. Hao Tianwang's cultivation was in the saint realm, and he had become one with Mount Buzhou, almost reaching the realm of immortality. Tang Zheng was very clear that it was easier said than done to truly kill him. He gazed at Mount Buzhou with a fluctuating expression. Hao Tianwang, your Evernite descent is ineffective. What else can you do? Hao Tianwang said, then what can you do to me? Tang Zheng's expression kept changing. It was indeed as Hao Tianwang had said. If he couldn't really kill Hao Tianwang, then everything was just empty talk. Unless you hide in Mount Buzhou like a coward for the rest of your life, I will definitely kill you. Tang Zheng said murderously. Haha, you want to use reverse psychology, but I won't fall for it. I won't show myself. Hao Tianwang was very clear about his own situation. It seemed that he would not leave Buzhou Mountain even if he was beaten to death. Tang Zheng was at his wits' end and could only gnash his teeth in hatred. When the others heard this, they flew into a rage and accused Hao Tianwang of being shameless. Hao Tianwang, on the other hand, was proud of himself. He did not put these people in his eyes at all. Boom! A loud sound came from the sky and immediately attracted everyone's attention. Everyone's heart trembled. Could it be that there was a new unforeseen event? One Hao Tianwang was enough for everyone to deal with. If a new enemy appeared, then the world would really be in danger. A vague figure appeared above the 9 heavens. Shadows flickered as a huge shadow appeared. It was as if a huge monster was descending from the sky. No, it came from another world. What is that? Many people cried out in alarm. They had never seen such a huge monster before. It was like another sky that completely covered their line of sight. Tang Zheng's pupils shrunk and then suddenly lit up. This was because he recognized what this was. Kuan Peng. This was actually a Kuan Peng. It passed through the spatial door and arrived in this world. Hao Tianwang, where do you think you're going? A thunderous roar came from the back of the Kuan Peng. Then, a group of people rushed down. However, when they saw everything around them, they were at a loss. This was because they did not see Hao Tianwang's figure at all. Tang Zheng looked at them in surprise and asked, Xiao Bai, why are you guys here? This group of people was naturally Xiao Bai and his subordinates, as well as the 4 symbols. Xiao Bai said indignantly, Master, the Kuan Peng sensed the movement in this world. We guessed that Hao Tianwang must have come. That's why we chased him here, hoping to completely eliminate Hao Tianwang. Where is he? Where is he? Xiao Bai looked around and still did not see Hao Tianwang. He could not help but feel suspicious. Tang Zheng nodded in understanding. He looked deeply at the Kuan Peng and said, Did the Kuan Peng bring you through the spatial door? With Xiao Bai's cultivation, he was temporarily unable to bring so many people through the spatial door. As for the other people in the sky beyond sky, they did not have the ability to do so. Xiao Bai seemed to have discovered a new continent. He pointed at the Kuan Peng and said excitedly, Yes, I also just found out that the Kuan Peng has this ability. If I had known earlier, we would have been able to freely travel between the 2 worlds. Currently, they had to rely on Tang Zheng's ability to travel. Now that they had the Kuan Peng, it was indeed much more convenient. Tang Zheng sighed, as expected of the Kuan Peng. It's really magical. Master, where's Hao Tianwang? Today, I want to fight him to the death. If he doesn't die, then I die. He caused our royal family to be destroyed and suffered a calamity. This hatred, I must take revenge. Xiao Bai's killing intent soared. 2 balls of flames appeared in his eyes. His body was emitting a blazing aura. Before Tang Zheng could answer, Hao Tianwang's voice sounded. Little brat, back then, your parents were no match for me. They either died or fled. What makes you think you're my match? Not to mention now, you couldn't kill me in the past. Not to mention now, I'm already in the saint realm. As soon as these words came out, there were exclamations everywhere. Some of Xiao Bai's subordinates knew what the saint realm was. They were immediately frightened by these words. The Saint Realm was unattainable for them. It was too high and too magical. How Tianwang had reached this realm. Didn't this mean that there was no hope for revenge? Xiaobai's cheeks were red. He gritted his teeth and said, "The hatred of killing my father is irreconcilable. Even if I die, I will take revenge." Tang Zheng understood Xiaobai's feelings. He patted him on the shoulder and comforted him, "Don't get too excited. He's actually not that powerful. Now that he's hiding in Mount Buzhou, he's like a coward. As long as he shows himself, we'll definitely find a way to kill him." Xiaobai understood what he was implying and asked, "What if he's a coward all the time? After all, he's not a gentleman. He's a complete villain." Tang Zheng rubbed his eyebrows. This was the situation he was most worried about. He couldn't always guard in front of Mount Buzhou. He didn't have the time and energy to fight a protracted battle with Hao Tianwang. One moment of carelessness, Hao Tianwang would escape. If Hao Tianwang escaped, it wouldn't be so easy to find him again. Everything would be in vain. The human world wasn't safe. Instead, there were greater dangers. Chapter 1806. Many pairs of eyes stared at Mount Buzhou, racking their brains on how to break Hao Tianwang's invincible Vajra body. Suddenly, someone leaped out and stared at Mount Buzhou with blazing eyes. "Let me try." For symbols. Many pairs of eyes focused on him, unable to hide their suspicions. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. The heaven and earth mystic stone is the same as the four symbols. They are intrinsically connected. He might really have a way. Everyone was shocked at these words. They stared at the four symbols and asked, "For symbols, do you really have a way to break through Mount Buzhou's defenses?" The four symbols didn't boast. He said in a deep voice, "Let's try." Tang Zheng made the final decision and said, "Okay, then let's give it a try." Bang, bang, bang. The four symbols flew through the air. The air beneath his feet trembled violently with every step he took. It was as though it was boiling, causing ripples in the air. His aura was terrifying. Hao Tianwang witnessed all this. His voice deepened as though it had been squeezed out from a crack in a rock. "A mere four symbols, you want to ruin my plans? Dream on." The four symbols was unmoved. He said, "Heavenly King Hao, the pain you inflicted on me last time, I will return it to you today." The four symbols had once been used as the foundation of the tower and suffered humiliation and pain. Now that he finally had a chance to avenge himself, he naturally wouldn't miss this great opportunity. Hao Tianwang snorted. "I was helping you, but you didn't appreciate it. This time, I'll destroy you and let you know the consequences of going against me." Boom. With a loud bang, a huge rock shot out from Mount Buzhou. It was like a meteorite from outer space, filled with endless power and speed. Both sides clashed. The four symbols didn't retreat at all. He soared into the sky and collided with the meteorite-like boulder. With a boom, the boulder exploded, but the four symbols was unharmed. In an instant, they arrived in front of Mount Buzhou. Swoosh! He punched out. The air trembled, leaving behind a series of fist shadows. With a loud boom, the four symbols' fist struck Mount Buzhou. The mountain rocks shattered, but the four symbols was unscathed. "You think that's enough to hurt me?" Hao Tianwang laughed wildly in disdain. With a flash of light, more rocks grew on Mount Buzhou, filling up the damaged areas. The pupils of the four symbols shrank. They understood that they couldn't harm the other party's foundation. Light flickered all over their bodies, and they rapidly grew taller and bigger at a speed visible to the naked eye. In an instant, he became as tall as Mount Buzhou. In front of these two giants, everyone else became incomparably small. Hao Tianwang, you rely on the heaven and earth mystic stone in Mount Buzhou. Without it, what can you do? The four symbols hit the nail on the head. Hao Tianwang flew into a rage and said, "So what? You can't do anything to me either." The four beasts snorted angrily and directly attacked. Immediately, the two colossal beings fought fiercely together, shaking heaven and earth. The 100,000 mountains experienced another round of great battle, and completely turned into ruins. Boom! The four giant figures fell from the sky and hit the ground. It was as if there was an earthquake. The earth trembled incessantly, and cracks spread out, turning into bottomless canyons. Ah! Cries of surprise rang out everywhere. Everyone was full of hope that the four symbols could create a miracle, but they didn't expect this result. Could it be that Hao Tianwang was really so powerful that there was no way to destroy him? The four symbols rapidly shrank back to their original size. They charged forward without any regard for their own safety, accumulating power and preparing to attack Hao Tianwang again. Tang Zheng saw the opportunity and hurriedly stopped them. Wait a moment. The four symbols had no choice but to stop and say, Master, my battle with him isn't over yet. I still have the strength to fight. Tang Zheng naturally knew this, but he also understood that the four symbols were no match for Hao Tianwang. After all, there was a big gap between their cultivation and strength. However, the conversation between the four symbols and Hao Tianwang inspired him. He had a bright idea and said, You guys are of the same origin as the Xian Heaven and Earth. Since Hao Tianwang relies on the Xian Heaven and Earth Stone in Mount Buzhou, then I'll also give you a portion of the Xian Heaven and Earth Stone. Will there be a way to help you? This question made the four symbols overjoyed. They didn't even need to think and hurriedly said, This is a good idea. It will definitely help me. Then what are you waiting for? Sumeru world flashed, and pieces of Xian Heaven Stone flew out, flying directly in front of the four symbols. This is the Xian Heaven Stone used to build the stairway to heaven? The four symbols asked. Exactly. The four symbols was overjoyed. The Xian Heaven Stone formed a circle with the four symbols in the center. The Xian Heaven Stone emitted a dazzling light, bathing the four symbols in it. Xian Heaven Stone. Hao Tianwang cried out in shock, looking at the pieces of Xian Heaven Stone in disbelief. The four symbols was currently merging with them. Once the merger was successful, their strength would definitely increase by leaps and bounds. How preposterous! Heavenly King Hao flew into a rage, and his attacks immediately swept over like a tidal wave. Don't even think of interrupting. The Emperor of Heaven, the Dragon King, and the others blocked one after another, trying to intercept Hao Tianwang. Hao Tianwang was a colossus, and his attacks were extremely sharp and overbearing. It was as if he had entered a no-man's land, and he sent his opponents flying one by one. A few experts formed a strong camp, and gradually slowed down Hao Tianwang's footsteps. Hao Tianwang looked at the four symbols and the Xian Heaven Stone that was close at hand, but he could only sigh and feel powerless. There was nothing he could do. The light of a piece of Xian Heaven Stone dimmed, and with a bang, it exploded into pieces. Immediately after, the light of the other Xian Heaven Stones also dimmed one after another, and they exploded into pieces. The four symbols' body shone brightly, and his aura was like a rainbow. He gradually became taller and taller, and in an instant, he stood upright, staring at Hao Tianwang like a torch. Hao Tianwang, let's fight again. Boom. He took a step forward and landed on the ground. Immediately, the mountains and earth shook, and he charged at Hao Tianwang without hesitation. All of you, get out of the way. The four symbols waved his giant hand, and a majestic force pushed the Emperor of Heaven, the Dragon King, and the others to the side, but did not harm them. Hao Tianwang and the four symbols faced each other again. Looking at the four symbols with completely different auras, Hao Tianwang was unable to restrain his anger, and shouted, Tang Zheng, all of this is because of you. You actually hid the Xian Heaven Stones, and let the four symbols benefit for nothing. I will take back all the Xian Heaven Stones, and then my descent of eternal night will be able to achieve great success. Don't boast too early, I want to see who will take whose Xian Heaven Stones. The four symbols roared, and their fists rushed over. This time, it was completely different from before, and their aura and strength had undergone an earth-shattering change. Hao Tianwang only took one look, and his heart trembled violently, but he was very clear that there was no way he could retreat. The battle between the two sides started again, and everyone retreated far away at the same time. Other than Tang Zheng, no one could get involved in this battle. What was called an eye-opener, this was called. This was simply beyond their imagination, so there was actually such an intense battle in this world. The elder ancestor had seen the most prosperous period of the Beyond Heaven, but he had never seen such a scene, and his heart was shaken violently. Chapter 1807. The fierce battle between the four symbols and how Tianwang was earth-shattering. Rocks flew everywhere. Tang Zheng did not rush to help. Instead, he watched with bright eyes. If Hao Tianwang showed any weakness, he would definitely give him a fatal blow. Boom, boom, boom. The rocks of Mount Buzhou did not even have time to grow before the four symbols' fists smashed them into pieces. Hao Tianwang gradually retreated. It seemed that he was no match for the four symbols. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. It did not seem like Hao Tianwang was pretending to be weak. Instead, it seemed that he was no match for the four symbols. The dark stone of heaven and earth is indeed extraordinary. Once the four symbols fuse, their power increases greatly. Their combat power has a qualitative leap. This did not mean that the four symbols had reached the Saint Realm. Mount Buzhou and the four symbols were of the same origin. Hao Tianwang hid in Mount Buzhou, but he could not fully utilize the combat power of Mount Buzhou. Instead, his own power was limited. After all, Mount Buzhou was not his body, but the four symbols were different. He was using his own body to fight. Their combat power could be imagined. However, Hao Tianwang had an advantage. He had an almost indestructible body. As long as there was no way to break through the defense of Mount Buzhou, he would be safe. No matter how fierce the attack was, he would be able to survive. It was precisely because of this that Tang Zheng could not do anything to him. The four symbols seemed to be changing everything. The four symbols punched out. A huge rock peeled off from the mountain, and a dazzling light burst out from it. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. He locked onto the light and shouted, "The dark stone of heaven and earth." The four symbols also saw this scene and were overjoyed. This meant that they had reached the core of Mount Buzhou. Once the dark stone of heaven and earth was destroyed, the defense of Mount Buzhou would naturally collapse. Boom! His fist landed on this piece of heaven and earth obsidian, and a huge force rebounded. The force of the rebound was the same as the strength of the four symbols. The four symbols flew backward in a rather embarrassing manner. Tang Zheng felt a chill in his heart and a flash of inspiration came to him. He said, "The heaven and earth obsidian is indestructible and has the power to protect itself. The four symbols cannot be defeated by force, only by intelligence." The four symbols also understood this point. Just as he was about to attack again, he saw a huge rock grow out, sealing the heaven-earth mystic stone. Hao Tianwang snorted and laughed wildly. "Ha ha ha, you want to defeat me with this little trick? Dream on." The four divine beasts snorted angrily. They roared unwillingly and rushed forward again. Boom! Boom! More rocks fell, and Hao Tianwang was forced to retreat again and again. The situation was becoming more and more obvious. "You're really a dogskin plaster, pestering me endlessly." Hao Tianwang was enraged, but he was hiding in Mount Buzhou, so his attack power was reduced. When his attack landed on the four elephants, they really took a few steps back, but it didn't hurt them at all. As a result, the two people's situations had completely different results and huge changes. The more the four symbols fought, the braver they became. With a boom, they broke through the last layer of rocks, revealing the heaven and earth mystic stone. The light rushed into the sky. The four symbols slapped over without any strength. When it landed on the heaven and earth mystic stone, he circulated his power and a dazzling light immediately enveloped him. Hao Tianwang was shocked as he understood the four symbols' intention. He shouted loudly, "You actually dare to do this, die." Boom! A huge rock smashed into the four symbols. The four symbols' body shook violently, but they didn't retreat at all. On the contrary, his footsteps were very steady. When Mount Buzhou flew backward, he followed like a shadow and didn't give the other party a chance to escape. The four symbols and Mount Buzhou were firmly stuck together. Boom! 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 The four symbols flickered with light again and again, but they didn't retreat. The light from the heaven and earth mystic stone quickly merged into his body to replenish his consumption. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up and he was overjoyed. He said, "Four symbols, good job, I'll lend you a hand." The four symbols method hit the key point. As long as the four symbols didn't leave the heaven and earth mystic stone, they could continuously absorb the energy of the heaven and earth mystic stone. When the energy of the heaven and earth mystic stone was completely absorbed by the four symbols, Mount Buzhou would naturally collapse. Hao Tianwang's defense would collapse without him attacking, so he had to face Tang Zheng directly. Hao Tianwang was also clear about this, so he panicked and kept attacking the four symbols. However, the four symbols didn't retreat at all, as if they weren't afraid of death. Tang Zheng flew to the top of the four symbols' head and looked at the huge rocks coming at him. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The hidden mystic sword flew up and rays of sword light filled the sky. Bang, bang, bang. The rocks broke into pieces. Under the hidden mystic sword, there was no way to escape. The four symbols breathed a sigh of relief and absorbed the light of the heaven and earth mystic stone wholeheartedly. Not long after, Hao Tianwang's attacks weakened, and the power of those rocks decreased sharply. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up, and he said, "Four symbols, we're about to succeed. Hold on." The four symbols replied with full vigor, "Yes, Master." Its eyes were full of extraordinary splendor, full of determination. "No." Heavenly King Hao roared unwillingly. Victory was in his grasp, but he was forced to defend passively. Now, he was about to fail to even let go, which meant that he was completely defeated. "You want to absorb my energy, so I'll take you down with me," Hao Tianwang roared. The two huge rocks were like two arms, directly hugging the four symbols. Tang Zheng's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He raised his hand and brought down the sword. One of the arms was already broken, but the other avoided the attack of the hidden mystic sword and firmly hugged the four symbols. The four symbols shook fiercely and stuck closely to the heaven and earth mystic stone, firmly unable to be separated. However, the four symbols did not have time to be happy, because a strong energy rushed into his body. Immediately, he was like an inflated balloon. The four symbols screamed and tried to retreat. However, that arm firmly suppressed him, so he could not even take a step back. "You don't want the energy of the heaven and earth mystic stone? I'll give it all to you, take it, ha ha ha." Hao Tianwang laughed sinisterly, pleased with himself. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank. How could he not understand Hao Tianwang's intention? In the early years, he used this move to deal with Qin Shi Huang in the ancient tomb. Then, he could turn danger into safety and defeat the strong as the weak. There was a huge amount of heaven and earth mystic stone in Mount Buzhou. When Hao Tianwang mobilized all the energy and rushed into the four symbols' bodies, it was like a flood, attacking the four symbols' bodies. The four symbols could continuously absorb the energy of the heaven and earth mystic stone, but he could not accept so much energy in an instant. Therefore, he was in imminent danger. Streaks of dazzling light burst out from the four symbols' body. His body became full of holes, as if he was about to explode from the energy. "Four symbols." Tang Zheng turned pale with fright and shouted loudly, "Master, I can't hold on any longer." Chapter 1808. The four symbols were in imminent danger. Everyone saw this and felt anxious, but they had no way to help him out. How could Tang Zheng sit by and do nothing? With a loud roar, he charged over without a care for his own safety. A majestic energy rushed out from the four symbols. This was the energy contained in the black stone of heaven and earth. Tang Zheng trembled. This little bit of energy was already enough to make his heart waver. If all the energy rushed into his body, one could imagine the feeling. It was hard to imagine how much pain the four symbols had to endure. Immediately, his heart sank into a bottomless abyss. "For symbols, don't worry, I'll definitely think of a way to save you," Tang Zheng shouted loudly. He ignored that terrifying energy and approached the four symbols with difficulty step by step as if he was going against the current. "Tang Zheng, you're courting death," Hao Tianwang roared. "However, since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." Boom! With a loud sound, a large hand drilled out from Mount Buzhou. A huge figure appeared, shrouded in dazzling light. The mountain god. The mountain god was full of killing intent, like a killing god that had walked out from hell. Roar! The mountain deity roared and unexpectedly exploded. It also completely died, turning into a wave of world-destroying energy that rushed towards the four symbols. Crack, crack, crack. A strange sound came from the four symbols' body. The four symbols shook violently, as if they could fall apart at any time. Tang Zheng bore the brunt of this and couldn't escape from this terrifying energy. His face became especially pale. Originally, Hao Tianwang didn't plan to pour out the energy of the black stone of heaven and earth. After all, it was extremely valuable to him. However, at this juncture, if he didn't do so, Tang Zheng's life might not be in danger. He had no choice but to do so. Not only the four symbols, but even Tang Zheng could be annihilated. In order to completely destroy this powerful enemy, he could only fight. As long as the four symbols and Tang Zheng were eliminated, the others would be nothing to be afraid of. This world would truly belong to him. Go to hell! Hao Tianwang roared, his eyes full of madness and killing intent. Boom! A ball of dazzling light shone, just like the explosion of the sun. The dazzling light almost blinded everyone's eyes. Everyone subconsciously closed their eyes, only to hear a rumbling sound in their ears, like a series of thunderclaps. Tang Zheng's body was riddled with holes as if he was being cut by 1,000 knives. Cracks appeared on his body as if he was about to be torn apart. The golden light flickered, as if a golden kasaya was draped over Tang Zheng, resisting this terrifying energy with great difficulty. At the last moment, a huge black hole appeared in Tang Zheng's palm. Like a bottomless pit, it rapidly devoured this terrifying energy. At the same time, in the heaven realm, vast amounts of energy descended from the sky, nourishing the tree of life and thousands of living beings. You made a move. Tang Zheng's head twitched as he guessed what had happened. Yuanying's doppelganger said jokingly, "If I don't make a move, won't I die at the hands of the other party?" Tang Zheng blushed with shame and said, "I'm still holding on." "Chimph, what's the use of holding on? The key is to deal with this energy. Didn't the heaven realm solve this problem?" Yuanying's doppelganger said. Tang Zheng was shocked. He had to admit that Yuanying's words made sense. The huge black hole protected Tang Zheng, and the energy was quickly sucked into the black hole, greatly alleviating the crisis of the four symbols. The cracking sounds in the four symbols' body disappeared, and the cracks on his body gradually healed. However, the dazzling light still did not dissipate. Other than the three people involved, no one else could see what was happening. Hao Tianwang saw it. Immediately, his mind was shaken, and he shouted, "What are you doing?" Tang Zheng sneered and did not say anything. He and Yuanying worked together, and immediately, the black hole became bigger and bigger, swallowing everything. Boom! Mount Buzhou let out an earth-shattering explosion, turning into pieces of gravel. The tall and towering mountain instantly turned into nothingness. The gravel flew in all directions, but it did not escape the black hole. In an instant, it was completely absorbed by the black hole. This terrifying energy disappeared, and most of it was sucked into the black hole, alleviating the crisis of the four symbols. The light dissipated, and everyone impatiently widened their eyes, staring straight at the battlefield. Where was Mount Buzhou? Mount Buzhou had disappeared. The towering mountain peak disappeared completely in the blink of an eye. The heaven and earth mystic stone no longer existed. It had completely turned into energy and was completely absorbed by the four symbols and sky beyond heaven. Where's Mount Buzhou? Everyone was shocked and in disbelief. But then, their attention was attracted by a figure. Hao Tianwang stood in mid-air in a sorry state, looking at Tang Zheng and the four symbols with a pale face, as if he could not believe all of this. He had lost just like that. Mount Buzhou was also gone, and he had nothing to rely on. How did the other party do it? He only saw a huge black hole suddenly appear, and then everything was over. Tang Zheng and the four symbols stared at Hao Tianwang with shining eyes, saying, "Hao Tianwang, now that things have reached this point, you're already at the end of your rope. What other tricks do you have?" Hao Tianwang said unwillingly, "How did you do it?" Tang Zheng sneered, saying, "Have you heard of the sky swallowing technique? It can even swallow the heavens, so this bit of heaven and earth mystic stone's energy is not worth mentioning." Sky swallowing technique. Hao Tianwang muttered these three words. It was not that he had never seen the sky swallowing technique, but he did not expect it to be so powerful. "I already know who your backer is, but let me tell you, he may not be able to save you." Tang Zheng hit the nail on the head. Hao Tianwang's pupils shrank. If you don't believe me, you can call the heavenly Tao out. He's even more of a coward than you are. He hasn't shown himself all this time and will only stir up trouble behind your back. First it was Yang Qingyi, and now it's you. I don't know who he will choose next, but I know that you will definitely be abandoned by him. Tang Zheng vowed solemnly. Every word was like a sharp knife, ruthlessly stabbing into Hao Tianwang's heart, dripping with blood. Hao Tianwang's expression suddenly changed, and he screamed in panic, "No, I won't be abandoned. He will definitely come to save me." Actually, Hao Tianwang also knew a little about the heavenly Tao, but he had no choice but to place his last bit of hope on the heavenly Tao. If the heavenly Tao did not save him, then his situation would not be good at all. With powerful enemies lying in wait, the possibility of him escaping was too low. Tang Zheng said jokingly, "Then you call the heavenly Tao out, I want to see him." Tang Zheng was not in a hurry to attack, but provoked Hao Tianwang. He did have the intention of luring the snake out of its hole. The heavenly Tao was too illusory. If he could use this opportunity to lure the heavenly Tao out, then it would be a good opportunity. He wanted to see what the heavenly Tao was up to. Unfortunately, after waiting for a while, there was still no news of the heavenly Tao, and there was no sign of it appearing. Hao Tianwang's face was full of despair. "Accept your fate, Hao Tianwang. You don't have Buzhou Mountain to rely on, what hope do you have?" As soon as Tang Zheng's voice fell, he raised his sword and rushed forward. Chapter 1809. The hatred in Xiaobai's heart soared to the heavens. This was the enmity of exterminating his clan, family, and country. It had been fermenting for countless years. A ray of bloody light shot out from the bloodthirsty scepter, transforming into strands of bloody threads that twisted into vines. Boom! The vines tore through the sky as if they were attacking. In the blink of an eye, they arrived in front of Hao Tianwang. "Sword, come." Hao Tianwang reached out with his large hand, and an ice sword extended from his palm. In an instant, the ice sword had transformed into a giant sword and slashed down from the sky. Boom! Fragments of ice and bloody light shot out in all directions, creating a shockwave that rippled out in all directions, forming a huge circle. Xiaobai's face was flushed red. He had clearly been shaken, but he didn't retreat. He gripped the bloodthirsty scepter, his face as hard as iron. He gritted his teeth and said, "I'll fight you to the death." Xiaobai's entire body was covered in raging flames. The flames wandered to the bloodthirsty scepter. Immediately, the flames were filled with a dazzling bloody light, flickering with a demonic aura. Xiaobai's figure gradually became blurry. Before long, his figure had disappeared into the flames, and the bloodthirsty scepter's light became more and more dazzling. Boom! As the light soared into the sky, the bloodthirsty scepter suddenly grew in size and power. Hao Tianwang seemed insignificant under the bloodthirsty scepter. Hao Tianwang raised his head and looked around. His eyes were like torches as he stared straight at the bloodthirsty scepter. He said in a deep voice, "Man weapon as one. Hao Tianwang, you exterminated my royal family. Today, I will make you pay with your blood." Xiaobai's voice resounded from within the bloodthirsty scepter, rumbling like thunder. "You want revenge with your little cultivation? I'll send you to meet your ancestors." Hao Tianwang wasn't afraid at all. On the contrary, he was full of disdain. Tang Zheng sneered and flew behind Hao Tianwang, forming a pincer attack with Xiaobai. He said, "Hao Tianwang, if I were to join forces, would you still be so confident? Ha ha ha, come, all of you, I'm going to kill you all." Hao Tianwang's face was filled with madness. However, in everyone's eyes, this was just his last bit of madness. Xiaobai did not reject Tang Zheng's help because he knew that he was no match for Hao Tianwang. He could only succeed with the help of Tang Zheng. "Hao Tianwang, bring out all the strength you've got." Tang Zheng roared and launched an attack at the same time as Xiaobai. Whoosh! The two of them streaked across the sky, one in front and one behind. They were one with the weapon. Tang Zheng and Xiaobai were nowhere to be seen. Only the hidden mystic sword and the bloodthirsty scepter remained. Who doesn't know how to become one with the weapon? Hao Tianwang became one with the ice, and the world suddenly lit up. The ice sword flew up and met the bloodthirsty scepter. Hao Tianwang's hatred for Xiao Bai burned. He wanted to defeat him as quickly as possible. As for Tang Zheng, Hao Tianwang knew that he did not have the confidence to defeat him in one blow, so he left him behind. "Page, you're ignoring me. Aren't you courting death?" Tang Zheng sneered. The hidden mystic sword sped up. The moment the ice sword hit the bloodthirsty scepter, the hidden mystic sword also hit the ice sword. Bang! The hilt of the ice sword exploded, turning into pieces of ice. The bloodthirsty scepter broke in the middle and split in two. Strands of blood shot out from the scepter and wrapped around the ice sword like a mummy. Roar! Hao Tianwang roared, "You're courting death." A sharp sword light shot out from the ice sword and cut the blood strands. Bang! 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 The blood strands kept breaking, but new blood strands kept coming out and wrapped around the ice sword tightly. "I will die with you," Little White shouted without any regard for its own safety. The ice sword kept on struggling, trying to get rid of the blood strands. However, Xiao Bai was determined to die. He did not want to let Hao Tianwang escape. Hao Tianwang was really anxious, because Tang Zheng's attack was coming again. The hidden mystic sword's aura and light made his heart tremble. He did not know what to do anymore. "Break!" Tang Zheng roared. Along with the hidden mystic sword's high-pitched sword sound, it was terrifying. Dang! A crisp breaking sound was heard. The ice sword was split in two. A stream of blood seeped out from the broken ice sword. The ice sword also turned dark red. When the blood strands came in contact with the blood, they seemed to go crazy and excitedly soared. "Ah, what are you doing?" Hao Tianwang screamed. The broken sword trembled violently, and a blurred figure gradually appeared. It was Hao Tianwang. He struggled in midair. The blood strands wrapped around his body and continuously sucked blood from his wounds. His eyes became panicked, and there was an intense pain in the depths of his eyes. "Hao Tianwang, aren't you very powerful? What can you do now?" Xiao Bai's voice sounded. "I'm not willing to accept this," Hao Tianwang screamed. His voice was trembling. He had already realized the power of the bloodthirsty scepter. It was like a cat that smelled blood. Once the bloodthirsty scepter tasted blood, he would be like a leech that would not leave and would definitely suck his blood dry. Tang Zheng had also guessed this point. He angrily helped, "Hao Tianwang, don't struggle. You can't escape. Xiao Bai, increase the power of your attacks. Let him pay with his blood." Xiao Bai said excitedly, "Yes, master." Although he was excited, there was an unconcealable fatigue and weakness in his voice. However, the conviction in his heart was firm and he had no intention of backing down. Xiao Bai's will was firm, but Hao Tianwang's determination to resist wasn't weak either. At this critical juncture, he finally gathered his strength and launched another round of attacks. Bang! 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 The blood strands finally couldn't hold on any longer and broke apart. Xiao Bai's figure appeared once again. His body was drenched in blood as if he had been fished out of a pool of blood. "Your Majesty!" The old ancestors cried out miserably when they saw this. They lost their heads out of fear and were filled with worry and concern. Little White waved its large hand, stopping them from approaching, and said, "Stand down." The old ancestors looked at each other in dismay. In the end, they had no choice but to withdraw. However, they all locked onto Hao Tianwang. As long as Xiao Bai gave the order, they would definitely attack together. They would risk their lives and sacrifice themselves for justice. Tang Zheng didn't let go of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Hao Tianwang repelled Xiao Bai. However, this was also when Hao Tianwang was at his weakest. The hidden profound sword pierced straight into Hao Tianwang's chest. The hidden profound sword pierced through his chest and blood flowed out. Hao Tianwang looked up to the sky and roared. He was filled with pain. He froze in midair, as if he was frozen. He didn't move at all. Pu. The hidden profound sword was pulled out from Hao Tianwang's body. Tang Zheng also appeared. He held the hidden profound sword and stood behind Hao Tianwang. Hao Tianwang turned his head with difficulty and glared at Tang Zheng. He muttered to himself, "Why did I fail? I have the eternal night descent. How can I fail?" He couldn't figure it out. Tang Zheng said righteously, "You chose the darkness. We represent the light. The light will eventually illuminate the darkness." Tang Zheng shouted at Xiao Bai, "I'll leave him to you. Avenge the royal family and the sky beyond sky." "Yes, master." Xiao Bai raised both his hands. There was no bloodthirsty scepter. Instead, bloodlines extended from his palms. The bloodthirsty scepter had completely merged with his body. Pu. How Tianwang couldn't resist at all. He watched as the bloodlines penetrated his body. His blood was like a raging river. It was completely absorbed by the bloodlines. His body was drying up at a speed visible to the naked eye. Chapter 1810. How Tianwang had died and turned into a withered corpse. A strong wind blew, and the corpse cracked inch by inch, turning into powder that drifted away with the wind and disappeared between heaven and earth. The blood veins returned to Xiao Bai's body one after another. Whoosh! Suddenly, a burst of bloody light shot into the sky. Xiao Bai cried out loudly as streaks of bloody light appeared on his face. Half the sky was dyed red, and the Kuan Peng was also dyed red. "Xiao Bai, what happened to you?" Everyone turned pale with fright as they stared at Xiao Bai and asked. Xiao Bai couldn't hear anything and couldn't answer a single word. Tang Zheng was shocked, but when he looked closely, he discovered that Xiao Bai's cultivation was increasing rapidly like a rocket. He immediately stopped the others from coming closer and said, "Don't worry, this seems to be a good thing for Xiao Bai." Good thing? Everyone was puzzled. The bloodthirsty scepter has absorbed Hao Tianwang's blood, and the bloodthirsty scepter has already become one with Xiao Bai. This is equivalent to him absorbing Hao Tianwang's blood. This blood contains Hao Tianwang's powerful cultivation, and this cultivation is constantly transforming into Xiao Bai's own cultivation. Tang Zheng spoke tirelessly, and everyone came to a realization. They all looked at Xiao Bai with envy. However, when they thought of Xiao Bai's experience and the fate of the imperial family, they didn't feel envious anymore. The heavens were clear. Perhaps this was Hao Tianwang's fate after committing so many evil deeds. He definitely didn't expect that the cultivation he had cultivated for countless years would end up benefiting Xiao Bai and become Xiao Bai's. Time passed minute by minute, and the bloody light on Xiao Bai's body gradually dissipated. At this moment, not only Tang Zheng, but everyone could feel the tremendous change in Xiao Bai. The Grand Ancestor was the most excited. His eyes glowed as he burst into tears. His legs gave way as he knelt down in midair. He wailed, "The late Emperor's spirit in heaven has seen what your Majesty has done and changed. You can rest in peace now. The vengeance of the imperial family has been avenged. The traitor has been killed by His Majesty. The imperial family will rise again. The realm beyond Avalon will rise as well." The old ancestor talked non-stop. When the others heard this, all of them were moved, and they felt sorrow in their hearts. They felt gratified for Xiao Bai, but they also felt sad about the process. The great ancestor turned around and kowtowed to Tang Zheng. He was sincerely convinced and said gratefully, "Tang Zheng, please accept my kowtow. If it weren't for you, I don't know when I would be able to avenge the imperial family. I can't even imagine what would happen to the realm beyond heaven. You're a member of the imperial family. You're the savior of the realm beyond heaven." Savior. The people of the realm beyond heaven knelt down and bowed to Tang Zheng. They shouted, "Savior." The sound waves rolled like thunder. It spread to the 9 heavens and then fell to every corner of the world. Savior. The people of the world raised their arms and shouted. Their gratitude and respect for Tang Zheng gushed out like a volcanic eruption. Their deafening voices echoed throughout the world. Tang Zheng never thought that he would really become a savior. He never had the consciousness of being a savior. But when he came to this step, he took on this responsibility without hesitation. Yi Dingdang and the others looked at him emotionally. Their eyes were already filled with tears. Their man was a savior. He had just saved the world. Their feelings could not be described with words. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. They were like a gust of wind and flew directly to Tang Zheng. The people of the world only saw a group of fairy-like people flying to the savior. The savior seemed to be flattered and fell directly from the 9 heavens. Suddenly, the group of people exclaimed, but then they burst into deafening laughter. No one was envious or jealous. This was because this was the treatment that the savior deserved. The savior took on such a big responsibility. Naturally, he should enjoy more treatment. As for enjoying so many fairy-like people, it was also a matter of course. Dezang of Gugurio looked at Tang Zheng and the beauties who disappeared. He chanted the name of Buddha. The Buddha's light shone down and bathed the ghost army. With a flash of the Buddha's light, they all disappeared and returned to the ghost realm. When Xiao Bai opened his eyes, they were full of excitement. He waved his fist and flames rose into the sky. There was a flirtatious blood-red flicker in it. The great ancestor hurried over and asked anxiously, "Your Majesty, what are you doing?" Xiao Bai said excitedly, "Great ancestor, Saint Realm. I have entered Saint Realm." "What, Saint Realm?" The great ancestor was so excited that he almost fell from the sky. Tears flowed down his old face. He said, "The heavens have eyes. The late emperor has blessed you. Your Majesty has finally reached Saint Realm." Xiao Bai's revenge was avenged. The knot in his heart was untied. With Hao Tianwang's blood constantly replenishing him, he had undergone earth-shattering changes. Memories swept over like a tide, filling his mind. These were the memories and secrets of the royal family. When he reached Saint Realm, the seal that was branded in the depths of the soul of every royal family member was automatically lifted. He truly inherited everything of the royal family. At this moment, he truly became the head of the royal family, His Majesty of Outer Sky. He exuded an aura of dignity from head to toe. This was a unique aura that belonged to the royal family, which was different from others. "Where is Master?" Xiao Bai asked. The great ancestor looked down. Little White lowered his head to look, but he could no longer see Tang Zheng, but somehow, he seemed to have sensed something, and revealed a mysterious smile with deep meaning. He looked around and looked at the others. He said, "Master is doing something important. Don't disturb them." Ha ha ha. As soon as this was said, everyone understood the meaning behind it. No one disturbed Tang Zheng's happiness. Xiao Bai looked at the Kuanping above his head. He pointed his finger and a ray of light pierced through and landed on the Kuanping. He said, "Kuanping, lead them back to outer sky." The Kuanping's light flickered as it prepared to pass through the spatial gate. "Your Majesty, we want to stay by your side and serve you." "No need. I will return to outer sky soon." Xiao Bai waved his hand. The great ancestor and the people of outer sky flew towards the Kuanping. They bathed in the Kuanping's light. The air fluctuated and then they disappeared. The sky returned to its clear state. The Emperor of Heaven and the others also landed with Xiao Bai and disappeared from the sight of people all over the world. Tang Zheng and the beauties landed in a valley. The somersault cloud hit the ground with amazing force. No one was injured. However, Tang Zheng's left and right arms were hung by people. Even his neck and back were hung by people. His face was already marked with bright red lipstick marks. Moreover, they were different lipstick marks. In this silent valley, no one came to disturb them. The somersault cloud was like a big bed. It covered the sky and the ground. Chatter and laughter resounded throughout the valley, followed by screams. Chapter 18:11. Several days had passed since the end of the world, and all sides had gradually calmed down. However, the mentality of the human race had undergone an earth-shaking change. A new world seemed to be quietly born. This was unavoidable. The various countries had asked Tang Zheng for help, trying to find a way to erase the memory of the human race and restore the peaceful life of the past. In the end, Tang Zheng refused. Whether he could do it or not, it was not advisable to do so. This was the true face of the world. If he forcibly erased the memory of the human race, what if something similar happened in the future? In the dark, Tang Zheng firmly believed that after this catastrophe, the human race might undergo unexpected changes, and the direction of the human race would deviate. As for which direction it would deviate, he still could not figure out the mystery. However, he was sure of one thing, and that was that this would be beneficial to the human race. At certain stages, the human race needed to evolve, and not be a flower in a greenhouse. Protecting all of them would be the real irresponsibility of the human race. As the saying went, the greater the power, the greater the responsibility. Tang Zheng's ability was undoubtedly the strongest among the human race. He had already saved the entire world and had taken on a huge responsibility. Tang Zheng would not abuse his ability, nor would he shirk his responsibility. As for what the various countries' governments would think, he did not care at all. That was because after this calamity, no country would dare to provoke him. Wouldn't that be digging their own graves? What made the various countries feel at ease was that Tang Zheng had no intention of fighting for power, and this gave them a chance to breathe. Although Tang Zheng was the savior, because the battle took place in the ninth heaven, except for a few people, the general public did not know the true face of the savior. Tang Zheng walked on the street, and no one would look at him. This was actually what he wanted. Of course, strolling on the street was almost an extravagant hope, because he had too many things to deal with. Xiao Bai sat down opposite him and humbly asked for advice. He had just reached the Saint Realm, and after the excitement, he had many questions in his heart. Tang Zheng said everything he knew, answering one by one, causing Little White to benefit greatly. Master, the realm beyond heaven has already been unified. I still need to sort out the bad debts left behind by Hao Tianwang. I still need Master's guidance before I can properly govern the realm beyond heaven, Xiao Bai said sincerely. Tang Zheng waved his hand to stop him from continuing. He said, Xiao Bai, you are a member of the royal family of the sky beyond heaven. This is your duty and responsibility. I could help you in the past, but I won't be able to help you in the future. You need to take one step at a time and try it out yourself. Xiao Bai let out an sound and said in a panic, Master, without your guidance, how could I do this well? I don't have any experience. Tang Zheng spread his hands and said, I don't have any experience either. Do you think I have experience in running such a big business? Tang Zheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Xiao Bai was at a loss for words. He had to admit that Tang Zheng was right. Then Tang Zheng encouraged, don't be so wishy-washy. Moreover, you have the ancestor and the others to assist you. You also have the royal family's memories. You have it much easier than me. Xiao Bai said resentfully, okay. After hesitating for a moment, Xiao Bai asked, Master, about Yuanying's clone, Tang Zheng immediately made a hand gesture to silence Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai suddenly understood and immediately covered his mouth. The two of them didn't move and didn't say a word. However, their divine senses were very active and they began to communicate. For the Saint Realm, communicating through divine senses was the most effective method. There was no need for words. In a few seconds, divine senses could communicate a lot. Xiao Bai's expression gradually became serious. It seemed that the situation was more serious than he had expected. Tang Zheng sighed inwardly. This was completely helpless because his every move was being monitored by Yuanying's clone. Apart from divine senses, nothing else could escape the eyes and ears of Yuanying's clone. What are you two plotting with your divine senses? Yuanying's clone lazily stretched in the Zifu and asked. Ever since the battle, Tang Zheng and Yuanying had no choice but to fuse together. The after-effects began to appear. Yuanying hid in the Zifu and Tang Zheng couldn't control him, let alone command him. Yuanying's clone was like another living life. It was independent of Tang Zheng, but it also had a huge connection with him. Yuanying's clone had Tang Zheng's appearance and possessed Tang Zheng's magical powers. It even had a part of his emotions. Facing Yuanying's clone, Tang Zheng had an unprecedented vigilance and panic. This was because this was a part of his body. Now that they weren't of the same mind, he was really in trouble. If Yuanying's clone became his enemy, then he would face more serious problems than Hao Tianwang. Now that the heavenly Tao was watching, if he didn't deal with the problem of Yuanying's clone, then his days of suffering would really come. Xiao Bai, regarding Yuanying's clone, you can't tell anyone else, lest they worry. I just went through a catastrophe, I don't want them to worry about me. Tang Zheng used his divine sense and warned. Xiao Bai nodded heavily. Master, don't worry. I'll fight side by side with you, and will definitely defeat Yuanying's clone. However, why don't I have a clone after reaching the saint stage? I'm not sure. Although everyone has Yuanying, whether it's Hao Tianwang or you, none of us have Yuanying's clone. I don't know what's going on with me. Xiaobai frowned. Then when will this end? We can only take one step at a time. The heavenly Tao has ulterior motives. He can bewitch Hao Tianwang, and naturally, he can bewitch others. We have to be prepared. When you return to the heavens beyond heaven, you can't be careless. Otherwise, it'll be too late if it leads to a disaster. What about the 4 symbols? The 4 symbols returned to the heavens beyond heaven with you. He absorbed all the energy of the heaven and earth mystic stones. He also gained a lot. Perhaps there will be new changes in the future. Xiaobai's eyes lit up. He was overjoyed. Then, will he also reach the saint stage? We can't rule out this possibility. Among so many people, other than the Dezang of Gugurio, Tang Zheng was most optimistic about the 4 symbols. He predicted that he would definitely reach the saint stage. It was only a matter of time. Master, what are your plans for the future? Tang Zheng was silent for a while. The heavenly Tao didn't come to find me. I've decided to take the initiative to find him. Ah, then do you know where he is? The heavenly Tao is very smart. No one has ever seen his whereabouts. However, the tomes of arcane is a great way to understand the heavenly Tao. Therefore, I've decided to talk to the Emperor of Heaven again. The Fu clan has a deep relationship with the heavenly Tao. If we trace it back, we might find something. Xiaobai nodded in realization. Suddenly, his heart moved. He asked, Master, after this disaster, I think that no matter if it's the human world, the world of spirits and the heavens beyond heaven, it's not absolutely safe. The boundless world is full of strange things. What if people from other worlds invade? Should we take the initiative to explore other worlds? Tang Zheng had thought about this question more than once. However, he still couldn't make up his mind on what to do in the end. Chapter 1812. Fang Shusha was bashful, as if there was something that was hard to say. Xiaobai tactfully retreated. Tang Zheng held Fang Shusha's small hand and gently asked, What happened? Fang Shusha looked left and right to make sure there was no one else. She leaned over to Tang Zheng's ear and whispered a few words. Tang Zheng's eyes instantly widened and he almost jumped up from the ground. He exclaimed, What, are you serious? Fang Shusha coquettishly said, Don't make a fuss, everyone else heard it. Tang Zheng hugged her and smiled like a flower. What are you afraid of? It's not something shameful. But I'm not sure, it's just a feeling. Isn't that simple? You're a cultivator, you can just check it yourself. Fang Shusha hesitated, I'm afraid I'll be happy for nothing. Tang Zheng kissed her forehead and said, Silly girl, I'm here with you, don't be afraid. Fang Shusha nodded reservedly and said, Okay, then I'll check it myself. She used her internal energy and everything in her body appeared in her mind. Even the slightest change in her womb did not escape her eyes. Her expression became extremely interesting. She was touched, but also in disbelief. It was as if everything was too magical and she was at a loss. How is it? Tang Zheng asked with concern. His expression was nervous. Even when facing Hao Tianwang, he was not so nervous. Fang Shusha gradually came back to her senses and nodded heavily. It's true. Tang Zheng was so happy that he was about to explode. He laughed wildly. Ha ha ha, I, Tang Zheng, am going to be a father. Don't shout, everyone heard it. Fang Shusha shyly lowered her head and punched Tang Zheng's chest, but her heart was full of sweet happiness. She was pregnant. She was also about to become a mother. Moreover, this was the fruit of her and Tang Zheng's love. It was the continuation of their lives. This feeling was too wonderful. She had experienced too many miraculous things, but none of them were as miraculous as this. She couldn't describe it with words. Tang Zheng suddenly squatted down and kissed Fang Shusha's stomach. He rested his head on her stomach and said, Son, can you hear Daddy? Fang Shusha's face immediately turned red. She was both happy and shy as she said, I just got pregnant. I'm still in the embryo. How can I hear you? Really? Tang Zheng's cultivation was profound, but he knew nothing about this. He scratched his head and said, "Then when can I hear it?" "I'm not too sure. I don't have any experience." These two rookies were completely clueless about this aspect. "However, how do you know that he is a son? Do you prefer sons?" Fang Shisha asked. Tang Zheng hurriedly shook his head. "No, I just said it casually. Whether it is a son or a daughter, I like them both." "That's more like it." Fang Shisha nodded in satisfaction. "Do you think this is the time in the valley?" Tang Zheng asked. "Yes." Fang Shisha hesitated for a moment before replying. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. At that time, Fang Shisha was not the only one. Could it be that the others were also pregnant? Fang Shisha seemed to have seen through his thoughts and said, "Then you should quickly ask the others." Tang Zheng would not ignore Fang Shisha and said, "They didn't mention it, so it definitely didn't happen. Let's talk about your stomach first." Saying this, his hand was already gently stroking her flat stomach. Tang Zheng was startled and made a big fuss. When the others heard the commotion, they all gathered around. When they saw the two of them sticking together like glue, many people were confused. Lan Yu was an experienced person. Rolling his eyes, he slapped Wu Junshan's shoulder and shouted, "That's great. This is great news." Wu Junshan almost staggered from the slap and asked in confusion, "Why are you slapping me? What great news?" Lan Yu was not in a hurry to answer. Instead, she strode to Fang Shisha's side and carefully supported her, asking, "Is it true?" Fang Shisha saw that she had guessed it and shyly nodded. Then, she buried her head in Tang Zheng's chest. Lan Yu laughed. Seeing that the others were still confused, she hurriedly explained, "Shisha is pregnant. She is pregnant." Boom. This was like a heavy bomb that was thrown into the crowd. Immediately, the crowd exploded. Everyone had different reactions. Many pairs of eyes stared at Fang Shisha, making Fang Shisha happy and shy. Tang Zheng scratched his head. There was no longer any killing intent. Instead, he laughed foolishly and said, "Shisha is pregnant with our child. Congratulations, congratulations." The crowd finally reacted and surrounded her. Not even a drop of water could trickle through, treating Fang Shisha as a national treasure. Every pair of eyes focused on her. Yi Dingdang still had a child's heart. She directly leaned on Fang Shisha's stomach and said, "You really are pregnant. Wow, there is a baby living inside." Li Xiaotian was pleasantly surprised at first. Then, her eyes dimmed and she could not help but touch her stomach. Wu and Liu Qingmai noticed her movements and subconsciously looked at their own stomachs. It was extremely flat. She was not pregnant. The few of them could not hide the envy in their eyes. They reluctantly stared at Fang Shisha's stomach. Yi Dingdang patted her stomach and pouted, "When can I be pregnant? I also want a baby." Ha ha ha. Once these words were said, laughter rang out. Everyone looked at the charmingly naive Yi Dingdang. Feng Xinyang tugged at her daughter's arm and said, "You are an adult. You still speak like a child." But without a doubt, Feng Xinyang also wanted Yi Dingdang to be pregnant. After all, it was Tang Zheng's child. However, this kind of good thing was unexpectedly taken by Fang Shisha. Feng Xinyang secretly made up her mind. She must teach her daughter a few moves. She must properly warn her and strive to succeed as soon as possible. Tang Zheng had been foolishly laughing. Seeing the group of people chattering and discussing non-stop, he felt that this was the happiest thing in the world. After surviving a great disaster, one was bound to have good fortune. After experiencing a calamity, he was safe and sound. This was his good fortune. Tang Dahai heard the commotion and also came. When he heard the news, tears flowed down his old face. He held Tang Zheng's hand and said, "Little Zheng, Grandpa is so happy. You also have a child. You have really grown up." All these years of heartache flashed through his mind. His nose became even more sour, but his face was brimming with happiness. This is Tang Zheng's first child. From now on, we must ensure Fang Shisha's safety. There must not be any accidents. There must be someone guarding her 24 hours a day. Lan Yu announced. No one refuted. This was a matter of course. Wu Junshan said, Tang Zheng has too many things to do. We must do these things well for him and have a stable background. Everyone knew that the heavenly Tao still existed. They did not know when to attack. The burden on Tang Zheng's shoulders had not been removed. Indeed, there was not much time. Chapter 1813. Fang Shisha had become a national treasure, enjoying special protection and care. After Tang Zheng passed the initial surge of emotions, he gradually calmed down. He still felt like he was in a dream. In the dead of night, he often pinched himself. I'm going to be a father so soon. Am I ready? After asking himself, he got an affirmative answer. His experience was very different from that of ordinary people. Although he was not old, his experience was thousands of times richer than countless people. His mind was mature enough to shoulder the heavy responsibility of being a father. He silently looked forward to the arrival of the little life. At the same time, the responsibility on his shoulders became heavier. The world was dangerous. After the child was born, he would face more dangers. If the crisis could not be resolved, then he could not give the child a safe living environment. He silently made up his mind that he had to solve the crisis in front of him before the child was born. The Emperor of Heaven was concentrating on cultivation. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and found that Tang Zheng had appeared in front of him. The Emperor of Heaven pointed to the chair and said, "Sit. I guess you're coming too." "Oh." Tang Zheng looked at him in surprise and asked, "You knew I was coming? There are not many crises in front of you, and the heavenly path is the most important. Of course you won't sit back and do nothing. Especially now that you have a child, you have to take precautions. This is the responsibility of a man." The Emperor of Heaven said. Tang Zheng nodded secretly. It seemed that after the Doomsday War, the Emperor of Heaven had also undergone earth-shaking changes. He was originally a 9th-grade Mahayana realm cultivator, only one step away from the Saint realm. The Doomsday War seemed to have given him more insights. During this time, he almost did not appear and had been in seclusion to cultivate. When Tang Zheng saw him, he had already seen some clues from bit by bit. Your cultivation is at the most critical moment. The Emperor of Heaven was not surprised. He smiled faintly and said, "After seeing your battle, I really have a certain understanding of the Saint realm. That is the realm I am really pursuing. I don't dare to slack off." "You will definitely succeed," Tang Zheng encouraged. Changing the topic, Tang Zheng went straight to the point. "I want to know everything about the heavenly Tao. I've already prepared the answer for you." The Emperor of Heaven nodded slightly, and a ray of light shot out from his hand, turning into thousands of streams of light that surrounded Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng looked around. These lights were filled with information, thousands upon thousands of them. His heart skipped a beat, and he reached out with his hand as if he was taking something out of his pocket. He immediately memorized this information. Not long after, all the lights fell into Tang Zheng's hands. He sorted out his thoughts and knew the ins and outs of the matter. The heavenly Tao had never appeared. Perhaps it did not have a physical body. This was because ever since the ancestor of the Fu clan accidentally obtained the heavenly book, generations after generations of comprehending the heavenly book had only cultivated their divine powers. They had never seen the true face of the heavenly Tao. The Fu clan also deduced that the heavenly Tao might not have a physical body. It was illusory and unfathomable. Tang Zheng frowned. If the heavenly Tao was so mysterious, why did it make use of the Fu clan to comprehend the heavenly book and spread the heavenly Tao? What did the heavenly Tao want? A thought flashed through his mind, and he couldn't help but remember Yang Qingyi's words. The heavenly Tao gave up on the Fu clan and chose Yang Qingyi because the Fu clan did not meet the requirements of the heavenly Tao, and did not spread the heavenly Tao to its fullest. This caused the people in the world to know very little about the heavenly Tao, and there were not many believers. Why did the heavenly Tao care so much about influence? Tang Zheng racked his brains, but he couldn't think of a reason, so he asked the question in his heart. The Emperor of Heaven pondered for a while, and said, "The brilliant heavenly Tao, I really can't understand his thoughts." Tang Zheng tilted his head, and stared straight at the Emperor of Heaven. Their eyes met, and time passed by minute by minute. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind, like lightning across the dark night sky. Tang Zheng straightened his body, and asked in bewilderment, could it be that the more people believe in him, the stronger he becomes? This is the source of his power, and that's why he cares so much. What? The Emperor of Heaven was shocked, as if he didn't expect Tang Zheng to say such a thing. For a moment, he couldn't make up his mind, and didn't know how to answer. Do you think it's possible? Tang Zheng asked. The Emperor of Heaven stammered, this seems too mysterious, I can't give an answer. Tang Zheng drew inferences, and the more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible, and said without stopping, look at the various deities worshipped in the temples, they have many believers. Could there be a kind of power of faith in the unseen world? The Emperor of Heaven shook his head, and said, but you haven't seen those deities. Now that we can't do anything, how can there be any deities? It was as if a door had opened in Tang Zheng's mind, and specks of light shone into his heart. He seemed to have understood something, and said, no, I don't think it's that simple. Those deities might not be illusory, maybe they were strong people who appeared in ancient times, and then did something earth-shattering, and then there were believers worshipping them day and night, and the incense kept burning. What about those strong people? If they really have the power of faith, how powerful would they be? Where are they now? The Celestial Emperor asked in return. Tang Zheng was speechless, and pondered for a long time, and said, the greater thousand world, the lesser thousand world, there are so many worlds, what if they have already left the human world, and went to another world? Naturally, we won't be able to see them. Isn't there a world of immortals in the legends? Maybe that's another world, it's just that we haven't come into contact with it yet. Tang Zheng's conjecture stunned the Emperor of Heaven, and he was dumbfounded. Even with his vast knowledge and whimsical imagination, he had never thought of Tang Zheng's conjecture. This made him feel as if he was suddenly enlightened, and unknowingly, he was about to believe it. But so many years of rationality told him that all of this was false, and it was all conjecture. Without substantial evidence, he wouldn't believe it. You don't believe it? Tang Zheng saw the clues in the Emperor of Heaven's eyes, and asked. The Emperor of Heaven smiled bitterly and shook his head, I only believe in facts, you're too vague, it's really hard to convince me. Tang Zheng gradually became more and more confident in his conjecture, and he analyzed, if there really is the power of faith, then everything can be explained. Your Fu clan only quietly comprehended the heavenly Tao, and didn't publicize it, so the people didn't know about it, and naturally, there was no such thing as faith. This caused the heavenly Tao to be dissatisfied, so it chose Yang Qingyi. Yang Qingyi is a very ambitious woman, she obtained the true inheritance of the heavenly Tao, so naturally, she would publicize the power of the heavenly Tao, and cultivate countless believers, so the power of the heavenly Tao would be stronger. As for Hao Tianwang, it's the same, he's not the same type of person as us, he's also a person with huge ambitions, and they're all people who would do anything to satisfy the wishes of the heavenly Tao. Since the heavenly Tao is so eager to obtain the power of faith, then we can make a fuss about it. Chapter 1814. Tang Zheng had discovered the power of faith and was convinced. The Emperor of Heaven was skeptical and only believed in the facts in front of him. The two had a disagreement. Emperor of Heaven, I will definitely find conclusive evidence to convince you. Tang Zheng said stubbornly. The Emperor of Heaven smiled, then I will wait for that day. That will also solve the mystery in my heart. Let me ask you one more time, where do you want to start? Tang Zheng said confidently, the power of faith is illusory, invisible to the naked eye, and no one has seen it before. This is a difficult problem. But didn't we just discuss it? This is like the legendary Buddha worshipped by people and worshipped by all. Perhaps the power of faith is hidden in it. So, I am preparing to go to the ancient Taoist temple. Maybe I will find something. Ancient Taoist temple? The Emperor of Heaven laughed involuntarily, not knowing what to say. So many people have gone to the ancient Taoist temple and no one has found any clues. You think you can do it? Tang Zheng smiled, after all, they are not me. The Emperor of Heaven rolled his eyes, fine. But let me tell you, there have been ancient Taoist temples since ancient times. This is something that has been there since birth. I don't know where it came from. When I was young, I also went there, but I didn't find anything. So I thought it was all a trick. Deceiving people can last for tens of thousands of years. This is very worthy of research. I neglected this point before, but now that I think about it, it seems to contain a secret that no one knows. Seeing Tang Zheng so persistent, the Emperor of Heaven helplessly shook his head. Then I will wait for your good news. In the depths of a mountain, clouds and mist lingered, like a legendary fairyland. The mountain road was steep, like a stairway to heaven, extending step by step into the sky. One by one, they prostrated themselves on the moss-covered steps. Every time they ascended a step, they would kneel on the ground and kowtow. Their mouths would mutter some profound scriptures. These people were incomparably pious, eating and sleeping in the open. Their clothes were ragged, and their skin was like old tree bark. But their eyes were clear like a clear spring, and there was a sense of unswerving determination in them. It was said that they were the most sincere believers in the world, and they had to kowtow step by step to show their piety and faith. Tang Zheng had already visited many ancient Taoist temples. Although there were many believers, he didn't find any power of faith, so there was no way to answer his questions. In the end, he heard that this ancient Taoist temple was the most famous and was very effective, so he came to investigate to see if he could find any power of faith. "Excuse me, may I ask if what you are doing is of any use?" Tang Zheng stopped a believer and asked. The believer was an old lady in her 70s. Her face was full of wrinkles, like ravines, full of the traces of time. She looked kindly at Tang Zheng and said, "This isn't about whether it's useful or not, but a kind of redemption for my soul. After going up the mountain, my soul can be purified. Everyone in the world is sinful, and only this can wash away their sins." "Everyone in the world is sinful?" Tang Zheng said thoughtfully, "Man's nature is good at birth, so why must everyone be sinful? In the rolling world of mortals, who can emerge from the mud and remain untainted?" The old lady asked back. Tang Zheng pondered for a moment and said, "Are there no exceptions in the world?" The old lady shook her head. "No. Then what kind of deity is on this mountain?" "There is no deity or immortal, it is the Tao." The old lady said sincerely, "Tao." Tang Zheng's eyelids fiercely twitched a few times. He had visited so many ancient Taoist temples, and all of them were filled with deities and Buddhas. But there was no deity or immortal on this mountain, it was the Tao. This word Tao deeply pierced Tang Zheng's soft spot, and his interest was immediately piqued. Then what is the Tao? The mysteries of the Tao cannot be described with words, you can only comprehend and experience it yourself. The old lady said mysteriously. Tang Zheng knew that he could not get any more information, so he lifted his feet and walked towards the mountain top. "Wait a minute." The old lady hurriedly called out to him. "If you go up like this, you will not be able to comprehend the Tao." The old lady anxiously said, afraid that Tang Zheng would make a mistake. "Then how do I go up?" The old lady knelt down again, and heavily knocked her forehead on the stone floor. She raised her head and said, "This is the only way." Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily and said, "I don't need it." What a joke, a non-existent Tao dared to ask him to kneel down, and kowtow step by step up the mountain. The old lady sighed and shook her head. What a pity, young people are still too impatient, they are destined to have no fate with the Tao. She took another step forward, and heavily knelt down, and sincerely kowtowed. Tang Zheng did not pay attention to the devout believers along the way. When he was halfway up the mountain, he looked back. The steep mountain road stretched as far as the eye could see, and the limestone floor was full of believers. Tang Zheng was shaken, and looked up at the mountain top, pondering, "I have never seen such devout believers in the old temple before, could there really be a mysterious Tao here? Would there be the power of faith?" Tang Zheng quickened his pace, and like a gust of wind, there were no longer any believers on the limestone floor, leaving only a bare flight of stairs. At first, he did not find anything strange, but after a while, the mountain road seemed to have no end. With his speed, he would have already reached the top of the mountain. He stopped, and his face revealed a suspicious expression. He looked back, but there were no longer any believers, only a steep mountain road. No, there was something fishy. Bang! He heavily stomped down with one foot, and with a loud sound, the ground cracked, and the mountain shook. The air fluctuated violently, and the trees swayed. But this did not last long, and everything returned to normal. The mountain road was still the same, and there were no more believers. What kind of magic is this? Tang Zheng could already conclude that someone was playing tricks, or that mysterious Tao was playing tricks. The heavenly way liked to play tricks. Could this so-called Tao be the heavenly way? Tang Zheng could not make up his mind. No matter what kind of Tao you were, you could not hide in front of Tang Zheng. Playing tricks, then I will see through your tricks. Swish! The hidden sword flew from his hand, and the sword light flashed. With a shout, the hidden sword cut through the air. Boom! The hidden sword fell on the mountain road, and the mountain road was twisted, shaking violently. With a crack, the mountain road disappeared, and the trees disappeared. Even the mountain disappeared, and everything was empty. What entered his eyes was a sky, and the wind was strong. He did not know when, but he was above the 9 heavens. Camouflage, you actually fooled me. This is not an ordinary trick. Tang Zheng looked serious. With his cultivation of the Saint Plane, he could not see through the trick at first glance, which showed how real this camouflage was. Who do you think you are? You actually dare to play tricks in front of me? Hurry up and reveal your true form. Tang Zheng's voice was like thunder, rolling through the 9 heavens. He waited for a long time, but there was no reply. He looked down, and that nameless mountain was still below. Then I will go down and have a look. Chapter 18:15. At the top of the mountain, a Taoist temple stood proudly by the cliff. Tang Zheng stood at the entrance of the temple and found that the believers were still kneeling devoutly. Some people had already entered the temple and disappeared behind the door. Tang Zheng walked in slowly and knocked on the door. A Taoist walked out and looked at Tang Zheng from head to toe. He waved his hand and said, "This temple does not receive guests." Tang Zheng pointed at the others and said, "Didn't they go in too? They are believers. Are you the same as them?" The Taoist asked. "We are not the same. But if I want to enter this door, which one of you can stop me?" Tang Zheng asked forcefully. The Taoist rejected him and said bluntly, "We do not welcome you." Bang! The door closed and Tang Zheng was actually given the cold shoulder. Tang Zheng's eyes widened in surprise. The other party's attitude was beyond his expectations. He turned to look at the other believers. They also looked up and looked at Tang Zheng with unfriendly gazes. "You should leave. You are not welcome here," a believer shouted at the top of his lungs. It was as if a switch had been turned on. The others were filled with righteous indignation. They pointed at Tang Zheng and shouted, "Scram, leave this place. This is a peaceful place, not a place for you to behave atrociously." The believers changed their previous devout appearance and became hysterical and incomparably crazy. Tang Zheng frowned. These people were not illusions but real people. If they were illusions, Tang Zheng would have already taken action. These people seem to have been cursed. They are like 2 different people. How strange. This temple is indeed strange. The more you do this, the more I want to find out. Bang! He slammed his palm on the door. How could the door withstand his strength? It fell apart with a clang. Suddenly, the world was silent. The believers looked at him in disbelief. They did not expect him to be so disrespectful and break the door. Anger climbed up the believers' brows. They seemed to have become demons from hell and approached Tang Zheng step by step. Tang Zheng turned around and looked at the believers in surprise. He was not afraid. These people were ordinary people. How could they scare him? He was just surprised by their change. "Stand down." He let out a loud roar that was so loud that even the deaf could hear it. This group of people completely stopped. Their bewitched expressions froze, as if they had lost their souls. They stood there in a daze. "Go down the mountain." Tang Zheng roared again, and the believers all turned around and obediently walked down the mountain. His voice had a kind of magical power, making them unable to produce any thoughts of resistance. It was as if his voice reached straight to the bottom of their hearts, gradually destroying their beliefs. Clap, clap, clap. A soft sound was heard, as if a bubble had burst. This voice was completely coming from the body of the believer. Ordinary people would definitely not be able to hear it, but Tang Zheng heard it clearly. He pricked up his ears and listened for a long time to make sure that he did not hear wrong. He had an idea and raised his head to look at the Taoist temple. Somehow, there was a subtle change in the Taoist temple's aura. It was as if the temple's aura had weakened. This change was very faint, but it did not escape Tang Zheng's fiery golden eyes. The power of faith, this is the power of faith. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up, as if he had discovered a new continent. He had always been looking for evidence of the power of faith, but he had not found any clues. This time, he had unexpectedly found some clues. These believers had a strong belief in the Taoist temple. His roar was so loud that it could enlighten even the deaf. It had crushed their belief, and the power of faith had also collapsed. The Taoist temple's aura had changed, and the cause and effect of all this was very obvious. Ha ha ha, so that's how it is. Tang Zheng laughed wildly as he watched the believers descend the mountain. He then turned around and walked into the Taoist temple in large strides. How dare you spoil our temple's cultivation? A few Taoists rushed out with long swords in hand and arranged themselves in a formation. Sword light swam about as they glared at Tang Zheng like a tiger eyeing its prey. Tang Zheng did not mind and said with a faint smile, acting all mysterious, "Call out the person in charge. Don't let these small fries make a fool of themselves." He walked straight in, not caring about these people at all. These people did not recognize Lu Shan's true colors and treated him as an ordinary troublemaker. With a shake of their long swords, they fell down like snowflakes and attacked Tang Zheng. Whoosh! Tang Zheng waved his hand and without any movement, the few Taoists flew out and flew over the courtyard wall. No one knew where they flew to, but they had completely cleared the obstacle. Now it's quiet. Tang Zheng walked forward and no Taoist came to stop him. He arrived at the main hall and looked up. He wanted to see what kind of deity this Taoist temple was consecrating. This deity was tall and mighty, but his face was calm without any special features. He was neither angry nor happy, and was not similar to the deities he had seen in other ancient temples. The deity statue was pitch black and emitted a mysterious aura. It was exactly the same as the Taoist temple. Tang Zheng stared at the deity statue for a long time and said, "Since you don't want to come out, then I will destroy your temple. Let's see how you will bewitch people and bring disaster to the world." From the reaction of the group of followers, this deity statue was definitely not a good thing. Moreover, he suspected that it was related to the heavenly Tao. Naturally, he would not be polite. Swoosh! The hidden profound sword flew up and turned into a ray of light. It lightly slashed towards the deity statue, but anyone could see that the power of this sword was unparalleled. It was likely that it would cut the statue in half. Clang! The sound of a long sword being unsheathed rang out. A ray of cold light illuminated the main hall. The deity statue actually came to life and pulled out a long sword to meet the hidden profound sword. Boom! The two shoulders collided. Like a shockwave, it spread out in all directions. With a rumble, the main hall was cut in half and collapsed. The ruins fell down and buried Tang Zheng and the deity statue alive. The world regained its tranquility. Only the ruins by the cliff were left. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew. A ray of sword light rose from the ruins. It carried the ruins and the wind, flying sand and stones as it attacked. Wherever it passed, the ruins retreated, making a wide path. Tang Zheng's figure appeared from the ruins, just under the long sword. Boom! The long sword fell. The mountain trembled. Half of the cliff was cut off by the sharp sword Qi, revealing the smooth mountain. It was straight and smooth like a mirror. The long sword stopped. It stopped above Tang Zheng's head. A hand reached out and two fingers clamped the long sword. The sword's breath disappeared. Cracks covered the long sword. With a crack, the long sword turned into pieces and fell to the ground. Tang Zheng was safe and sound. His eyes flashed and locked on to the deity statue. He deliberately said, "Heavenly Tao, you still don't show up. Why are you hiding? I have figured out your tricks." The power of faith must be very important to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so impatient to build this temple and bewitch so many followers. Chapter 18:16. Tang Zheng stared at the statue and said, "It doesn't matter if you don't speak." Swish. The hidden profound sword flew out, aiming for the statue's neck. The statue waved its arm, but it was cut in two by the hidden profound sword like tofu. Pop! The hidden profound sword struck the statue's neck, and the statue's huge head fell down the cliff. Under Tang Zheng's attack, the statue could not resist at all. Hey! Tang Zheng did not expect the statue to be so weak. It was as if it had lost its soul, unable to withstand a single blow. The battle ended so quickly. He did not even have time to interrogate the other side before everything ceased. The trail was cut off. Looking at the fallen statue, Tang Zheng was dejected. He suddenly raised his head and roared at the sky, "Heaven's path, where are you hiding? Come out." There was no answer, only the biting cold mountain wind that blew incessantly. There's nothing wrong with the power of faith, at least I've discovered this point, and the heaven's path most likely requires the power of faith. Even if this temple has nothing to do with the heaven's path, it must be looking for other methods in other places. As long as I follow the trail of the power of faith, there will always be some clues. In this world, if he wanted to find something or a clue, it would be too easy. All of this was thanks to Li Xiaotian. She was indeed worthy of being the former holy maiden of the Li Palace. It had to be said that the previous palace master of the Li Palace had a very unique insight to discover such a talent. The Li Palace under Li Xiaotian's control grew stronger and stronger, extending to every corner. All kinds of information gathered at the Li Palace, and nothing could be hidden from the Li Palace. When Li Xiaotian received Tang Zheng's call, the colossus that was the Li Palace was activated. Every link burst forth with energy, and it did not take long for the news to come back. There were many ancient temples in the world, and most of them had existed since ancient times. In the past few years, many places had sprung up, and incense was flourishing, with many believers. Among them, there was one place that attracted the most attention. This place was completely different from other places, and it did not fit in. It was simply a strange place, but the key was that there were many believers and incense was flourishing. When Tang Zheng saw this news, he was also puzzled. He felt that it was too strange. If it was in the past, he definitely wouldn't have thought too much about it. But now that he thought about it carefully, he actually felt that there was some mystery behind it. When he arrived at his destination, he was even more shocked by the scene. This is too primitive, too nonsensical. He looked at the mountain of deities and Buddhas, and his head was filled with black lines. This was simply overturning his three views and understanding. This was a barren mountain peak that was divided into countless regions, and each region had a different god. Along the way, he doubted his own eyes. What did he see? The Chariot Temple, the Examination Temple, the Grandmother Temple, the Empress Temple, the Mazu Temple, the Tudi Temple, the God of Wealth Temple. There were all kinds of temples and gods. Among them, there were many original gods that had never existed since ancient times. Most likely, as long as you wanted a god, that god could be created here. It was completely for urgent needs, and it could satisfy all your needs. In addition, the divine statue was also extremely strange. It was draped in red and green and painted with rouge. It was completely different from the ordinary solemn and dignified deities. It was simply perfunctory. As Tang Zheng watched, the scene was too horrible to look at. So many gods gathered on this barren mountain like a hodgepodge, and the sense of dissonance was too strong. If ordinary people heard about this, they would definitely think it was ridiculous and no one would believe it. But the reality was that there were many believers. Countless people lined up and filled the mountain path. There was actually a ropeway built on this mountain. The ropeway continuously pulled people to the top of the mountain, saving time and energy. It was simply too fast and convenient. This was a world of difference from the Taoist temple where one had to worship at every step. It was a completely different style. But the people on the mountain did not feel dissonance. Instead, they were extremely devout. They kowtowed in front of the gods, burned incense, and chanted. The content of their prayers was also varied, and there were all kinds of things. He casually asked a believer, and the other person swore solemnly that he was an ordinary person without the demonic behavior of the Taoist temple. But he was also extremely devout and revered these gods. He swore that the gods were very efficacious and would grant any request. He asked a few people in a row, and all of them said that it was efficacious. Tang Zheng could not help but pay more attention. Even if there were gods in the world, they could not be these messy gods. But this place was so efficacious. There must be a mystery behind it. There must be some kind of power that satisfied the prayers of the believers. That was why it was so efficacious. Tang Zheng did not act rashly. He walked around the entire mountain. When night fell and the believers left, he walked out again. Looking at the starry mountain peak, he was deep in thought. The heavenly axiom needed the power of faith, and a single temple's power of faith could satisfy his requirements. Then how could he collect more power of faith as soon as possible? This place had all kinds of functions. There were all kinds of believers. It was simply a net to catch all of them. Wasn't this the best place to collect power of faith? Tang Zheng laughed and said, "Heavenly axiom, you have put in a lot of effort. You really know how to have fun. You have actually played to such a level. What an eye-opener. I wonder if you will cry if I destroy this place of yours." He walked toward the nearest car god temple. Under the light, the statue of the car god looked quite odd. It was holding the steering wheel as if it was a person driving. Tang Zheng did not know whether to laugh or to cry. "Then I'll start with you." He grabbed with his large hand and a wave of energy enveloped the statue. With a cracking sound, the statue seemed to be on the verge of breaking apart. Swoosh! A ray of light shot out from the statue's eyes. The statue came to life and turned the steering wheel in its hands. A car fell from the sky and crashed directly toward Tang Zheng. "Ha ha ha, this counterattack is quite interesting." Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. With a palm strike, the car was split into pieces. Meanwhile, Tang Zheng arrived in front of the car god and slashed out. The car god turned the steering wheel and a steering wheel appeared in mid-air. It turned into a rope and tried to bind Tang Zheng. Thump! The hidden mystic sword cut through the steering wheel. A crack appeared on the car god's forehead and extended all the way to the ground. The car god was split in two. The light in its eyes receded and it collapsed into pieces. Tang Zheng did not even turn his head and went to the exam god next door. The statue held a pen in one hand and a test paper in the other. It looked like a teacher grading test papers. Tang Zheng did not attack. The pen in the exam god's hand shot out like a blade. The test paper trembled and quickly expanded. It fell from the sky and seemed to want to cover Tang Zheng. "Break!" Tang Zheng roared. The pen broke and the test paper cracked. The exam god was cut in half and fell to the ground. Everything was calm. Tang Zheng became more and more energetic. He directly grabbed at the other temples. Fierce battles could be heard from every temple. However, they lasted for a short time and stopped abruptly. There were fewer and fewer temples. These random gods had all fallen into Tang Zheng's hands. However, the heavenly axiom did not make a move. Chapter 18:17. There was no movement from the heavenly Tao. Tang Zheng couldn't help but wonder if he had come to the wrong place and this place had nothing to do with the heavenly Tao. Even if that's the case, this place is definitely not a good place. Since I've come across it, then I can't stay here. I must remove this tumor. The sword chi swept through the entire mountain peak, leaving only the temple on the mountain peak. Whoosh! A ray of light shot out from the temple, blocking the hidden mysterious sword. Hey! Tang Zheng's eyes widened in shock. His eyes lit up and he was overjoyed. Strange, this counterattack is different from the other temples. It's much stronger. He flew up and appeared above the temple in the next second. Looking down from above, he realized that all the temples on the mountain were protecting the temple at the peak. There was a way. No matter what the way is, one sword will break it and everything will turn to dust. Su. The hidden mysterious sword fell down from high above. A statue rushed out from the temple. It had 3 heads and 6 arms, and on its chest were the words God of Body. Ha ha, it's you, omnipotent God. According to the introduction, you are the embodiment of omnipotent and omnipotent. I want to see how you will break my hidden mysterious sword. The hidden mysterious sword's attack suddenly increased. The omnipotent God's hands moved together, shining with golden light. He actually caught the hidden mysterious sword. The sword light overflowed and his palms peeled off layer by layer. However, the omnipotent God still firmly held onto the hidden mysterious sword. Tang Zheng's face sank. This omnipotent God was not normal. It was much stronger than the gods in the temples below the mountain. Tang Zheng, you destroyed my training ground. I will kill you. A roar came out from the omnipotent God's mouth. Tang Zheng was shocked. This omnipotent God could actually speak and recognize him. Who are you, the heavenly Tao? Tang Zheng probed. I am the embodiment of the heavenly Tao, the omnipotent God. The omnipotent God said. Tang Zheng had an idea and said, then you and the heavenly Tao are jackals of the same tribe. You just have to admit this point. Tang Zheng decided to learn from his previous experience. He could not kill the other party with one strike. That way, he would not be able to interrogate the whereabouts of the heavenly axiom. He sized up the omnipotent God as though he was looking at a prey. The omnipotent God was enraged. Kill, Wang. The air vibrated as a circle of ripples appeared in the air, turning into a bloody mouth that bit towards Tang Zheng's head. You dare to embarrass yourself with such petty tricks. Tang Zheng's mouth glowed with lotus flowers as the Kittigaba Sutra unleashed its might. Numerous golden Sanskrit words flew out from his mouth, wrapping around the bloody mouth and shattering it. More and more golden Sanskrit words appeared, interweaving into a golden kasaya with golden lotuses engraved on it. It descended from the sky and grew bigger and bigger, covering the sky and the sun, covering the omnipotent God's head. You have nowhere to run, so just submit obediently. Tang Zheng roared. The hidden sword of Xian shone brightly. Pu, 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 the sword chi pierced through the omnipotent God's arm and severed it. The kasaya descended from the sky and covered the omnipotent God. The omnipotent God tried to break free, but it was in vain. The kasaya shrunk and the omnipotent God became smaller and smaller. Finally, it became the size of a palm and flew into Tang Zheng's hands. Tang Zheng opened the kasaya and saw the tiny omnipotent God. He said, do you think you can escape from my 5-finger mountain? The omnipotent God struggled in Tang Zheng's hands, but it could not escape. An invisible force imprisoned it, causing all its efforts to be in vain. Now we can talk. You are the incarnation of the heavenly axiom, so you must know where the heavenly axiom is. Tang Zheng said calmly. Dream on, I will never tell you. The omnipotent God roared and bared its teeth. If your believers saw you like this, they would be so disappointed. Who would believe you? Tang Zheng could not help but laugh as he joked. The omnipotent God shouted, nonsense, I have a lot of believers. I can drown you with a mouthful of spit from each of them. Spit can't drown me, but the power of faith is different. If I let you collect too much power of faith, it will really cause me a lot of trouble. Do you think I am right? Tang Zheng stared at the omnipotent God. The other party was not much different from a real person. Tang Zheng naturally wanted to glean more information from its words and actions. The omnipotent God was shocked and asked in shock, how do you know about the power of faith? Tang Zheng was as clear as a mirror. He had guessed correctly. The power of faith. How can such a little trick fool me? Didn't you create this nondescript dojo to collect as much power of faith as possible? You really put in a lot of effort. The omnipotent God said in disbelief, how can you know about the power of faith? No one in this world can know about it. That can only mean that I am smart enough to see through your scheme. Tang Zheng did not expect that he would be able to see through the other party's trick on a whim. If the other party collected enough power of faith in the future, who knew what would happen? The omnipotent God sneered, so what if you saw through it? Our plan is nearing its end and has succeeded. You have no hope. Tang Zheng's expression turned cold. He had a bad premonition and asked, Could it be that you have more than one dojo? Of course, there are so many temples in the world. Do you know which one was set up by the heavenly Tao? After so many years, who knows how much power of faith has been collected? Haha, this world belongs to the heavenly Tao after all. What can you do? The omnipotent God said proudly. The heavenly Tao has already carried out the plan. He has prepared several ways. Not only does he have the puppet Yang Qingyi, he has also bewitched Hao Tianwang. And the final trump card is the countless temples in the world. Tang Zheng's face turned pale. The heavenly Tao's plan was too meticulous and secretive. If not for a whim, Tang Zheng would never have thought of this. Now that he had thought of it, the heavenly Tao was about to succeed. The situation was not good. Where is the heavenly Tao? If you don't tell me, I will make you suffer endless torture and make you wish you were dead. Tang Zheng threatened with killing intent. In your dreams. The omnipotent God was very stubborn and turned his head. Boom. A ball of flame rose from Tang Zheng's palm and surrounded the omnipotent God. What kind of flame is this? The omnipotent God screamed. Heavenly flame. What kind of flame is heavenly flame? It is a flame that I invented. Let me tell you, heavenly flame can refine many things. One of them is to refine the divine soul. You are the incarnation of the heavenly Tao. Actually, you are just a little bit of divine soul. If I refine you, you will no longer exist in this world. No. The omnipotent God screamed. That won't do. The heavenly flame burned even more vigorously. The omnipotent God's body was unharmed, but his divine soul was gradually fragmenting and could completely disintegrate at any time. Once it disintegrated, there was no way to reverse the situation and he would completely disappear from this world. The omnipotent God screamed incessantly. In the dark night, it was especially mournful, like the cries of ghosts and howls of wolves. I will tell you where the heavenly Tao is. Chapter 18:18. The omnipotent God stammered, the heavenly Tao is divided into thousands of clones, hiding in all the temples in the world to collect the power of faith and strengthen itself. All the temples in the world? Tang Zheng was shocked and asked, then how many temples are there? I can't say for sure, but there are many. Tang Zheng was deep in thought, then the temple he saw before was definitely one of them. That statue was also one of the heavenly Tao's incarnations. He really didn't see it from afar. However, this wasn't the answer Tang Zheng wanted. He wanted to go straight to the root of the problem. He didn't have that much energy to sweep through so many temples one by one. I don't care about the incarnations of the heavenly Tao. I'm asking you where the heavenly Tao's true body is. Tang Zheng asked with killing intent. The heavenly fire rumbled and burned even more fiercely. The omnipotent God kept screaming, stop, 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 let me think. Tang Zheng stared straight at the omnipotent God and asked, I suddenly thought of a problem. You are the incarnation of the heavenly Tao, we are irreconcilable, you should rather die than submit, why are you telling me so much? The omnipotent God said with grievance, there are so many incarnations of the heavenly Tao, it doesn't matter if I have one or not. If I die, it will be my loss, and it will benefit the other incarnations. How can I do this kind of unprofitable business? Heh! The more Tang Zheng listened, the more confused he became. The more he thought about it, the more shocked he became, as if he had discovered something extraordinary. Aren't you supposed to carry out the will of the heavenly Tao? Why do you have your own thoughts? Hee hee. The omnipotent God let out two strange laughs and said, the heavenly axiom has thousands of incarnations, and each incarnation has its own destiny. After collecting the power of faith, it also has thousands of transformations, and has its own will. This is a will that is independent of the heavenly axiom. Tang Zheng said thoughtfully, in other words, in the end, you will carry out the will of the heavenly Tao, but you also have the ability to think independently, to judge the situation and protect yourself. Smart. The omnipotent God praised. No wonder the heavenly Tao sees you as the biggest threat for thousands of years, it's not without reason. You created these messy gods, it seems like you are the one with the most clever mind. The omnipotent God said proudly, this is my original creation, unlike the other incarnations that are inflexible and inflexible. What do you think of my Tao field? Although it's neither fish nor fowl, it has many followers, far more than the temples I've been to before. That's right. Haha, you see it that way too. That means I'm the most successful. If you hadn't come, I would have definitely become the most powerful incarnation of the heavenly Tao. You're not modest at all. The omnipotent God laughed dryly and did not comment. What is the heavenly Tao's cultivation level? How can he create thousands of incarnations? Tang Zheng asked. He only had one Yuanian clone, and this was already a huge mess. He really didn't know how the heavenly axiom dealt with all this. The heavenly Tao has no cultivation. It is an untraceable thing without a physical body. Therefore, it can create thousands of incarnations with just a thought. Take you, for example. Once you break free from the shackles of your physical body, your godly soul can transform into countless parts, omnipotent God explained. The heavenly Tao doesn't have a physical body? Tang Zheng was shocked. This was completely different from what he had expected. He couldn't figure it out. How can a person not have a physical body? The heavenly Tao isn't a person. To be precise, it's just a godly soul, a will, a type of energy that exists between heaven and earth, omnipotent God said. This made Tang Zheng more and more confused. His heart was in turmoil. Then how did it come into being? Tang Zheng had an idea and asked the key question. It was born at the beginning of the world. It was a remnant of energy. At that time, it didn't have spiritual intelligence. It wandered the mountains and rivers and saw the changes in the world. Over time, it gained spiritual intelligence. It saw that the people worshipped the gods and wanted to imitate them. However, it was too weak and couldn't fight against these gods. In the end, it could only hide in a corner and continue to gather energy in secret. What? You said gods? There are really gods in this world? Tang Zheng was shocked and interrupted the omnipotent God. Tang Zheng used to be skeptical of gods. He used to think that gods really existed. However, after he reached the Saint Plane, he realized that gods might really be a legend. This was because, with his cultivation, he had already reached the level that some gods could do. However, he did not find any other gods, so he gradually denied the existence of gods. He thought that it was just some people pretending to be mysterious, a trick to deceive the ignorant. Of course there are gods. They are from another race, not the human race. Another race? Yes, the gods. The creation of heaven and earth was the work of the gods. The more the omnipotent God spoke, the more mysterious it became. Tang Zheng was shocked. He was so excited that he almost doubted his ears. Omnipotent God, are you sure you're not talking nonsense to distract me? Tang Zheng asked in a low voice. The heavenly fire grew stronger. The omnipotent God didn't have the strength to struggle. He could only scream in vain, "You want to hear the truth? I've already told you, but you don't believe me. What do you want me to do?" Tang Zheng took a deep breath and suppressed the waves in his heart. He urged, "Continue. What kind of race is the gods?" The heavenly fire grew smaller. The omnipotent God took a deep breath and continued, "I don't know where the gods came from. I only know that they are very powerful. They rely on the power of faith of their followers to strengthen themselves. The more followers they have, the stronger they become." The heavenly axiom discovered this point and followed it to figure out the power of faith. After a pause, the omnipotent God looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated expression. "You actually thought of the power of faith on your own. I don't know if you're a genius or a monster." Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. It was just a sudden thought. Then where did the gods go? The gods ruled this world for many years. I don't know what happened after that. They left. Then, the heavenly Tao had a chance. He imparted the Tao to the Fu clan. However, the Fu clan couldn't fully understand the heavenly Tao's intention. In the end, they didn't take in a large number of followers to collect the power of faith. Tang Zheng was shocked. If the Emperor of Heaven heard these secrets and understood the inside story of the Fu clan, who knew what he would think? After the heavenly Tao imparted the Tao, its power decreased sharply. For thousands of years, it couldn't impart the Tao again. It could only silently accumulate energy and prepare for a comeback. In recent years, The heavenly Tao finally accumulated enough energy and imparted the Tao to Yang Qingyi. Unfortunately, Yang Qingyi couldn't be used. She was too ambitious and failed at the last step. Then what about Hao Tianwang? That was just an attempt. I hope Hao Tianwang can stop you. After all, you're too strong. Tang Zheng secretly nodded his head, deep in thought, and asked, once the heavenly Tao gathers enough faith power, will there be any changes to him? Chapter 18-19. A True God Race. Tang Zheng quivered, finally understanding the intentions of the heavenly Tao. It turned out that he wanted to be a God race. The strength of the God race could be seen from the omnipotent God's words. The heavenly Tao's ambition is not small. Tang Zheng laughed in ridicule. The omnipotent God asked back, don't you want to? The God race is so glorious, it really makes people yearn for it. You want to be a God race too? Of course. Who doesn't? Tang Zheng shook his head. I don't want to. Actually, I'm quite a good person. People have too many ties and fetters. They're not strong enough. Does the God race not have these? Definitely. Even if you speak of the God race so well, then why is the God race gone today? The heavenly Tao guessed that something must have happened for the God race to leave, and they left in a hurry. When the heavenly Tao becomes a God race, maybe we can solve this mystery. Tang Zheng shook his head and said, the God race is too far away, we should return to the heavenly Tao. He doesn't have a physical body, so how do you contact him? How do you pass the power of faith to him? The omnipotent God's expression changed slightly, looking at Tang Zheng in shock. You can even think of this. It's not hard to deduce. The believers in this training field believe in you and not the heavenly Tao, so the power of faith naturally gathers on you. If the heavenly Tao doesn't come to take it, it can't just let you take it for free, right? These words hit the nail on the head, causing the omnipotent God to be absent-minded for a long time. Then he gave Tang Zheng a thumbs up and praised, having an enemy like you is the heavenly Tao's biggest regret. Don't change the topic, answer me. Tang Zheng aggressively asked. The omnipotent God stammered, he will come to find me regularly to take the power of faith. Then when will he come again? 3 days later. Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows and said, this training field is destroyed, will he find out? If he finds out, will he not appear? Of course he will find out about this mess. The omnipotent God sighed. Once he finds out that the dojo has been destroyed, he will definitely not show himself. Your plan has failed. Who said that? Tang Zheng smiled meaningfully. Isn't it just a matter of deceiving everyone? You are the spies of the heavenly Tao. As long as you keep your mouth shut, I can deceive everyone in the world and thus deceive the heavenly Tao. What are you going to do? Omnipotent God asked curiously. Tang Zheng smiled and waved at the foot of the mountain. Omnipotent God looked around curiously. Suddenly, his pupils dilated as he exclaimed, illusion. An illusion that can pass off as real. Tang Zheng said confidently, no one in this world can see through it. Not even the heavenly Tao. If he appears, it doesn't matter if he sees through me, because I will also discover him. Then why didn't you notice it before? You weren't here before. Omnipotent God understood. He was the embodiment of the heavenly Tao. In the dark, he had a mysterious connection with the heavenly Tao. This connection could not be detected by ordinary people, but it could not escape Tang Zheng's detection. Once the heavenly Tao appeared, Tang Zheng would be able to detect the connection between the two sides. Following the vine to the melon, it would not be difficult to find the heavenly Tao. Omnipotent God was speechless. He could only watch as Tang Zheng used his illusion to restore the dojo to its original state. Not even a single detail was changed. If you find the heavenly Tao, what do you plan to do? Omnipotent God asked curiously. What do you think? Tang Zheng asked with a smile that did not look like a smile. Omnipotent God pondered for a moment and said, you definitely won't let him go, but can you kill him? Even if I can't kill him, I still want to meet him. Aren't you afraid that he will kill you? Ha ha ha. Tang Zheng laughed. If he could really do that, why would he wait until now and not make a move? Omnipotent God smiled bitterly. You are indeed too powerful. In just a few short years, You have achieved what you have today. Throughout history, I'm afraid this is unprecedented. You flatter me. Tang Zheng replied with a smile. The next day, the staff and believers of the dojo went up the mountain and did not find anything strange. It was worth mentioning that this dojo was very special. The staff were all believers and were very devout. They were in charge of maintaining order. They worked during the day and got off work at night. This was also why the huge commotion last night did not alarm anyone. After all, this place was very remote and too miraculous. Everyone was in awe of this place. In the past, more or less supernatural things had happened. Everyone was in awe of this place and no one came to visit at night. Early in the morning, everyone saw that the dojo was safe and sound. The last bit of doubt disappeared like smoke in thin air. Tang Zheng wandered around the dojo and observed the believers. He gained a lot and had a new understanding of the power of faith. When the incense sticks burned, green smoke rose in spirals. Tang Zheng gradually saw something unusual. The green smoke circled around the statue for a while and seemed to disappear. In reality, it turned into a kind of energy. The power of faith. Tang Zheng could tell at a glance that this energy was very strange. He tried to absorb it but found that it circled around him and did not merge with him at all. It was completely different from the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and the power of the stars. This is the power of faith. It will only be used by me. The power of faith is a very personal energy, no one can take it away. Omnipotent God's voice sounded in his ears. Tang Zheng raised his head and looked at the temple of the omnipotent God. He saw the power of faith flying towards the temple of the omnipotent God and circling around it before falling down and disappearing. It must have been absorbed by the omnipotent God. Tang Zheng seemed to have understood something and said, "No wonder the divine race wants to absorb the power of faith. This is indeed a kind of energy that people yearn for. Now you know how good the divine race is?" Omnipotent God asked. Tang Zheng smiled and said, "What's the use of being good? What does it have to do with me? No one believes in me, so naturally there is no power of faith." This thought was like a key that caused Tang Zheng's head to tremble. He actually had a wonderful idea. Even the omnipotent God, this so-called God that fooled people, could have so many believers, so why can't I? I am the savior of the world. If the millions of people don't believe in me, who will they believe in? He stood there in a daze and looked at the green smoke curling up in spirals. All sorts of feelings welled up in his heart. "What are you thinking about?" Omnipotent God asked. "Do you think I can have believers?" "You!" Omnipotent God shuddered as if he had been stepped on. He exclaimed, "Why would you have such a thought?" His voice was already trembling slightly as if the fluctuations in his heart were very strong. "Hey!" Tang Zheng thought about it and asked, "What's wrong with you? Can't I do it? I think I can give it a try." "No, no." Omnipotent God denied. "You, the incarnation of the heavenly Tao, can do it, so why can't I? Do you think it is easy for me to win over so many believers?" "Oh right." Tang Zheng was reminded and asked the question that had been suppressed in his heart. "How can you guarantee that the prayers of your believers will come true?" Chapter 1820. The omnipotent divine general explained the methods of the Tao field very thoroughly, and Tang Zheng had to admit that in this aspect, the other party was much stronger than him. "You're saying that as long as you use your power to satisfy the prayers of a few people, 10 will spread to 100, 100 will spread to 1,000, and then you'll be able to continuously attract believers?" "Yes, it's very simple." "It is indeed simple. Did the heavenly axiom learn this from the divine race?" "This." The omnipotent God stammered. Tang Zheng smiled knowingly. "Sure enough, I didn't guess wrong. All of this was learned from the divine race." "Hey, omnipotent God, do you think it's reliable for me to collect the power of faith?" Tang Zheng asked again. The omnipotent God stammered, not knowing how to answer. Tang Zheng laughed. "You're not answering because you're afraid that I'll do the same, right? It's not that easy." The omnipotent God stammered. "What if I succeed?" The omnipotent God did not speak again. The sky darkened, and the Taoist temple regained its tranquility. Tang Zheng stood in the omnipotent temple, looking up at the starry sky, letting the starlight fall on his body. The celestial chess had already expanded from Dianan to other places. In time, the celestial chess would be set up all over the world, and the world's self-defense would be stronger. Even if they encountered a strong enemy, they could rely on the celestial chess to defend themselves without relying on Tang Zheng. After all, Tang Zheng could not always protect the world. What if he was not in this world? He had to give others the power to protect themselves. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew from afar, pulling Tang Zheng's thoughts back. His eyes lit up as he stared in one direction. He's here. The omnipotent god was shocked. He did not expect Tang Zheng's senses to be so sharp. The heavenly axiom had just appeared, and before he even got close, he had already discovered it. The omnipotent god had no way of informing him. Tang Zheng flew up and landed in the void. He stared at the empty sky and said, "Heavenly axiom, you're finally here." The night wind blew, but no one answered him. It was as if he was the only one in this world. If an ordinary person saw this, they would probably think that he was an idiot, actually talking to himself in the air. Tang Zheng, on the other hand, was firmly locked in front of him, not giving him any chance to escape. "Heavenly Tao, there's no need to hide anymore," Tang Zheng said indifferently. He walked forward step by step, stepping on the void as if he was walking on flat ground. Boom! A burst of energy, like lava erupting from a volcano, swept towards Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng casually waved his hand, and a strong wind blew, shattering this energy into pieces. Their first clash was a draw. "Tang Zheng, you're still haunting me. I can't believe you actually found your way to my training ground." A deep voice rang out, full of majesty. If ordinary people heard it, they would probably prostrate on the ground. However, this had no effect on Tang Zheng. He said calmly, "If you don't want others to know, don't do it in the first place. Heavenly Tao, you thought you were flawless, but you still couldn't escape my eyes. How did you find out?" Heavenly Tao asked, puzzled. "He thought of the power of faith on his own," said Wn Shunning, flying up into the air. He thought of the power of faith himself. How did he think of the power of faith? Did you tell him? Heavenly Tao didn't believe him and asked. "No, no." Pantheon waved his hand, afraid that Heavenly Tao would misunderstand. However, Heavenly Tao still didn't believe him. Tang Zheng smiled and said, "You've really misunderstood Pantheon. It was indeed me who thought of it. Then, I found his special training ground and followed the vine to find the melon. Finally, I found you." Heavenly Tao suddenly realized and said hatefully, "Pantheon, I warned you long ago that your training ground was too strange. Sooner or later, it would attract the attention of others. You didn't believe me. Now you know." Pantheon said faintly, "But I collected so much power of faith for you. If I didn't do it this way, how could it have such a good effect?" Heavenly Tao was speechless. It was indeed as Pantheon said. Heavenly Tao didn't order Pantheon to stop everything for the sake of the power of faith, which led to the current disaster. Tang Zheng smiled and said, "Heavenly Tao, you're just burning the bridge after crossing the river and throwing all the blame to him. Actually, I have to admit that he used a lot of ingenuity to create this training ground. It really opened my eyes." Pantheon secretly gave Tang Zheng a thumbs up. Heavenly Tao snorted and said, "Pantheon is my incarnation. I'm disciplining him. You don't have the right to butt in. Seeing injustice on the road, I speak up for justice. This is my usual style. Tang Zheng, since you've found your way here, you're courting death. Anyway, we'll have to settle this sooner or later, so I'll get rid of you sooner rather than later. You brought this upon yourself." Heavenly Tao said aggressively. Tang Zheng shrugged and said, "Heavenly Tao, don't make it sound so scary. We know each other very well. Can you really kill me? Why can't I kill you? Don't think that just because you ruined my plan, I can't kill you. I'm not afraid to tell you that I've already collected enough power of faith. Killing you is a simple matter." Heavenly Tao said proudly. He did not put Tang Zheng in his eyes at all. Tang Zheng took a stance and said jokingly, "Then let's see who's the real deal. Pantheon, give me the power of faith." Heavenly Tao roared at Pantheon. Pantheon hesitated for a moment and muttered, "It wasn't easy for me to collect so much power of faith. I don't even have a share for myself." Hua! A burst of energy rushed out from Pantheon's head. It was like smoke rising in spirals as it floated towards Heavenly Tao. Tang Zheng's pupils constricted and said, "Power of faith." His figure flashed as he unsheathed the hidden profound sword and blocked the power of faith. He roared, "Heavenly Tao, if you want the power of faith, you'll have to go through me first." The power of faith returned to Pantheon's body. Pantheon hurriedly waved his hand and pointed at Tang Zheng, saying, "This has nothing to do with me. It's his fault." Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily and said, "Pantheon, I'm helping you, but you're throwing the blame to me." Heavenly Tao was furious. "Pantheon, you're my incarnation. You actually dared to eat and betray others and collude with outsiders. Do you not want to live anymore?" Pantheon defended himself, "Don't listen to his nonsense. I didn't collude with him at all. I'm your incarnation. You have to believe me." "Believe you? Then why did you secretly hide the power of faith before?" "Ah, how did you know?" Pantheon turned pale with fright and cried out. Although Pantheon was the incarnation of Heavenly Tao, after collecting enough power of faith, he also had his own thoughts. Every time, he would secretly hide a bit of power of faith. Although Heavenly Tao knew, he never pointed it out. That was because Heavenly Tao believed that Pantheon was his incarnation. No matter what, he would not be able to escape from his grasp. Chapter 1821. Omnipotent God had hidden the power of faith and was now with Tang Zheng, leading him here. Tian Dao could not help but doubt Omnipotent God's loyalty. Omnipotent God felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He could not wait to defend himself. "Don't misunderstand, although I have hidden the power of faith, I have no ulterior motives." Tian Dao sneered and did not comment. Omnipotent God stared straight at Tang Zheng and said angrily, "Tang Zheng, you are framing me." Tang Zheng said with a smile that was not a smile, "Omnipotent God, I am helping you. Tian Dao wants to take away your power of faith, don't you want to keep it?" "I." Omnipotent God stammered, "Tang Zheng, don't try to sow discord, we will not fall for it." Tang Zheng stood between Tian Dao and Omnipotent God and said, "Now that things have come to this, if we work together to kill Tian Dao, won't the power of faith be yours? Why are you afraid? Don't be impatient, watch how I deal with Tian Dao." Tang Zheng did not say anything more to Omnipotent God, he attacked Tian Dao with an imposing manner. Omnipotent God could not say anything, he could not defend himself, he glared at Tang Zheng's back as if he could spit fire. Tang Zheng purposely provoked Omnipotent God and Tian Dao to create animosity between them, thus preventing Tian Dao from obtaining the power of faith as he wished. As expected, Tian Dao was naturally suspicious. In addition to Omnipotent God's previous record, both sides really developed animosity, allowing Tang Zheng to succeed. Tang Zheng approached Tian Dao step by step, the hidden profound sword flashed with a terrifying light. Tian Dao roared unwillingly, "Tang Zheng, you are courting death, I will grant you your wish." The sky was torn apart, countless chi energy flew out, a huge tearing force enveloped Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's expression was stern, his sword trembled, a few sword flowers flew out, blocking the terrifying force from all directions. Then, he aimed at Tian Dao, although he could not see, his chi was firmly locked onto Tian Dao. "Tian Dao, let's see where you can run to." Su. The hidden mystic sword struck out like a bolt of lightning, hitting a piece of the void. The hidden profound sword stopped, and a huge force was blocking its attack, causing it to be unable to move forward another inch. Tang Zheng and the mysterious hidden sword felt the same way, and only felt a terrifying power enveloping him. He tried to struggle, but it was as if he had fallen into the vast and mighty sea. There was power in all directions, and there was no way for him to break free. "Tang Zheng, you can't break free. This is the power of faith. It's different from any other power in the past. It's not something you can resist." Heavenly Tao said proudly. "The power of faith." Tang Zheng frowned. He took a deep breath and calmed down. He reached out with his hand and activated the sky swallowing technique. A black hole appeared in front of him and aimed at the heavenly Tao. So what if you have the power of faith? Do you think you can escape from my sky-swallowing technique? The sky-devouring technique could devour everything, including the power of faith. Whoosh! A strong wind blew in the sky. The power of faith and the air were sucked into the black hole. The sky seemed to be collapsing, and a huge black hole appeared. Tang Zheng's heart trembled. As the tide rose, the boat rose, and the swallowing heaven technique followed the increase in his cultivation, and had long since experienced a rapid change. The sky-devouring technique could probably devour the sky. Sure enough, half of the sky collapsed and was completely sucked into the black hole. As for the power of faith, it was no exception. Ha ha ha. A burst of laughter came from Tang Zheng's body. It was Yuanying's doppelganger. He had been hiding in Tang Zheng's zifu, and Tang Zheng could not control him. Now that the power of faith was sucked into the sky, Yuanying's doppelganger seemed to come alive. He stretched his body and appeared in front of Tang Zheng in the blink of an eye. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank. He exclaimed, "Why did you come out?" Yuanying's doppelganger laughed. "Why can't I come out? You can't trap me." Tang Zheng was speechless. The omnipotent god looked at Yuanying's doppelganger in a daze, then looked at Tang Zheng. He exclaimed, "Why is there another one? That's his Yuanying's doppelganger." Tian Dao was not surprised and explained, "Yuanying's doppelganger?" The omnipotent god was shocked. Yuanying can actually leave his body and become a real doppelganger. Tang Zheng had seen Tian Dao's countless doppelganger, so he was not surprised by Yuanying's doppelganger. He said, "Tian Dao can have thousands of doppelganger, so why can't I have Yuanying's doppelganger?" "You're right." Yuanying's doppelganger gave Tang Zheng a thumbs up and praised him. Tian Dao snorted. "This is not the same thing. Yuanying's doppelganger has the same strength as you, but my doppelganger only has a portion of the divine ability. There's no way you can compare to me." Tang Zheng was enlightened. "Yuanying's doppelganger, you're actually a part of Tang Zheng. What's the use of you hiding in his body all day? You should take the initiative." Tian Dao suddenly instigated. As soon as he said this, Tang Zheng sensed Tian Dao's intentions. It was simply too vicious. Yuanying was not on good terms with him, and they had many different opinions. Tian Dao was trying to drive a wedge between them. This was to make them fight among themselves, and the consequences would be worse than him trying to drive a wedge between Tian Dao and the omnipotent god. After all, the omnipotent god could not truly contend against Tian Dao, but Yuanying's doppelganger was different. Yuanying's doppelganger also saw through Tian Dao's intentions. He smiled faintly and shrugged. "If I wanted to take over this body, I wouldn't have waited until now. I also don't need you to instigate me." Tang Zheng sighed in relief. At least Yuanying's doppelganger did not fall for it. What kind of person is Tang Zheng? How could he let you have your way so easily? That's not up to him. Right now, I'm more interested in other things. Yuanying's doppelganger said proudly. "What things?" Tian Dao asked. Tang Zheng also pricked up his ears. He could not figure out what Yuanying's doppelganger was thinking at all. Yuanying's doppelganger looked at the black hole and said, Tang Zheng and Tian Dao were both shocked. They did not understand what Yuanying's doppelganger meant. Yuanying's doppelganger said meaningfully, "Tian Dao, you're full of confidence and think that the power of faith is exclusive to you. No one else can take it for themselves. But I want to tell you that there are no absolutes in this world." "What do you mean?" Tian Dao was stunned for a moment. He said mockingly, "You want to take my power of faith?" Tang Zheng was also shocked. He did not know what Yuanying's doppelganger was planning. Yuanying's doppelganger said lazily, "What's wrong with that? I just want your power of faith." Ha ha ha. Tian Dao laughed maniacally. Nonsense. Omnipotent God shook his head. He also thought that Yuanying's doppelganger was whimsical. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. He looked pensive as he stared at Yuanying's doppelganger. It was as if he wanted to see through his heart. Yuanying's doppelganger winked at Tang Zheng and said, "If they don't believe it, then I'll make them believe it." With that, he charged straight for the black hole. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank. He shouted, No. He had already understood Yuanying's doppelganger's intentions. Chapter 1822. Yuanying's clone gave Tang Zheng a strange smile and flew straight toward the black hole. Tang Zheng wanted to remove the sky-swallowing technique, but it was too late. With a flash, Yuanying's clone disappeared into the black hole and appeared in the heaven realm. The omnipotent god looked at this scene in a daze, not understanding what was going on. The heavenly Tao exclaimed, "What is he doing?" Whoosh! The suction force of the black hole suddenly increased, and the heavenly Tao's power of faith poured into the black hole like a flood and disappeared. This abnormality made the heavenly Tao feel alarmed. Tang Zheng sighed. How could he not understand the clone's intention? He and Yuanying's clone could not directly absorb the power of faith. When the power of faith was sucked into the black hole and integrated into the heaven realm, the situation changed slightly. Everything in the heavenly Tao could be used by Tang Zheng and Yuanying's clone. Even the power of faith was no exception. Yuanying's clone could not wait to enter the heaven realm so that he could take the power of faith for himself. This had been confirmed. In the heaven realm, Yuanying's clone stood on the top of the tree of life. He opened his arms and roared at the power of faith circling in the air, opening his mouth. Whoosh! The power of faith flowed down like a waterfall and fell into his mouth. Tang Zheng could not stop all of this. He could control everything in the heaven realm. Similarly, Yuanying's clone could do the same. Moreover, Yuanying's clone was in the heaven realm. He was close to the water, so his control of the heaven realm was slightly better than his. Therefore, no one could stop him from absorbing the power of faith. Ha ha ha. The power of faith is indeed extraordinary. Yuanying's clone soared into the sky and soared above the 9 heavens. He was like wind and lightning, majestic and majestic. There was a subtle change in his aura. Tang Zheng stared at him with a burning gaze and then observed himself. However, there was no change at all. His eyes dimmed and gradually understood. Yuanying's clone had done so much. His purpose was obvious. In the past, there was no difference between him and Tang Zheng. Their cultivation levels and strength were the same, and even their mystiques were the same. But from this moment onwards, there was a difference between them. Yuanying's doppelganger had the power of faith, but Tang Zheng did not. This was the dividing line between the two of them. In the long run, the difference between the two of them would only grow bigger and bigger. This was the true intention of Yuanying's doppelganger. He was unwilling to submit to others. A strong sense of crisis arose spontaneously. Tang Zheng had to admit that he had greatly underestimated Yuanying's doppelganger. The clone had its own consciousness and naturally rebelled against the real body. He glanced at the omnipotent God. This was similar to the omnipotent God and the heavenly axiom. The omnipotent God was the incarnation of the heavenly axiom, but once he had his own independent consciousness, he would not be left out. Tang Zheng and the heavenly Tao could not escape this. Yuanying's doppelganger sensed Tang Zheng's thoughts and advised, "Don't be afraid. I've become stronger. This is a good thing. After all, we're all one. I won't harm you." Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. He could not believe these words. Yuanying's doppelganger had put in a lot of effort and schemes. Perhaps he would not do anything to Tang Zheng now, but in the future, if Tang Zheng blocked his path, would Yuanying's doppelganger make a move? Tang Zheng was not completely confident. "Tang Zheng, you still haven't answered me. What exactly is he doing?" The heavenly Tao asked angrily. Tang Zheng glanced at the heavenly Tao indifferently and said, "You've calculated everything, but you've miscalculated one thing." "What?" "Nothing is absolute. Your power of faith is not that safe." He can take your power of faith for his own use." Tang Zheng's voice was not loud, but to the heavenly Tao and the omnipotent God, it was like a bolt from the blue. They cried out in unison, "Impossible." The omnipotent God's expression suddenly changed. The heavenly Tao did not have a physical body and could not see his face, but one could imagine the raging waves in his heart. The heavenly Tao's voice became low as he asked, "How did he do it?" Tang Zheng pointed at the black hole and said, "After your power of faith enters the black hole, everything has nothing to do with you. In the dark, subtle changes have occurred, and he can take the power of faith for himself. So that's how it is. The heavenly Tao seemed to be gnashing his teeth. Back then, the God race was unable to take the power of faith for themselves, but you did it. This is too inconceivable. The omnipotent God sighed in amazement and seemed to be very afraid. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank as he asked, "Is that so? It seems that the God race is not omnipotent. What I can do, they can't do." Tang Zheng did not revere and worship the God race as much as the heavenly Tao. From the looks of it, the God race was not omnipotent. At most, they were more powerful. The heavenly Tao was silent for a long time before hitting the nail on the head and saying, "Tang Zheng, raising a tiger is inviting calamity. In the long river of history, I have seen too many of these things. I have to remind you." Tang Zheng's face was expressionless, but waves had already risen in his heart. He pretended to be calm and said, "Heavenly Tao, you don't have to sow discord. The matter between him and me will be settled between us. Now, let's settle the matter between us." It was because of the uncertain factor of Yuanying's doppelganger that Tang Zheng wanted to cut the Gordian knot and solve the problem of the heavenly Tao. Then, he could deal with Yuanying's doppelganger. The heavenly Tao snorted angrily and said, "You are stubborn and refuse to give up." Tang Zheng laughed and said, "When have you ever given up? You have harmed me time and time again and almost caused this world to be destroyed in the hands of Hao Tianwang. Not only me, but you are the enemy of the entire world. I am only seeking justice for you on behalf of others." The heavenly Tao said disdainfully, "Humans are like ants. They are just a race that lives in this world. How can they be worthy of seeking justice from me? In the long river of history, it would be easy for me to destroy this race if I wanted to." Tang Zheng's expression turned cold and said, "If you look down on humans so much, then why do you still need to use them to absorb the power of faith? That's the last of their value." Tang Zheng shook his head and said, "Heavenly Tao, you look down on humans, but let me tell you, I am also a human. You have already broken away from them. To be precise, you are no longer a pure human." The heavenly Tao corrected. Tang Zheng said stubbornly, "No, at any time, no matter what realm I am in, no matter where I go, I am still a human. This is my root. I decided from the moment I was born and will never change. You are stubborn and have completely abandoned yourself. I am willing. If you choose to be with ants, then you are also ants." The heavenly Tao flew into a rage and roared, causing a gust of wind to blow in the air. Rumble. The training hall actually flew up and the huge mountain peak kept shrinking. "What are you doing?" the omnipotent God exclaimed. The heavenly Tao said with killing intent, "Of course I am killing him. Omnipotent God, you are my incarnation. Do you really think that with your own consciousness and some tricks, you can escape from my five-finger mountain? I am not Tang Zheng. I am not that stupid." Bang. Chapter 1823. The mountain peak turned into a giant seal, and with a flash of light, the two words "heaven suppressing" appeared on the seal. "You have destroyed my temple." Universal God was pained as he beat his chest. Tian Dao sneered, "So what? Not only will I destroy your temple, I will also take you in." The heaven-suppressing seal fell from the sky, not towards Tang Zheng, but towards Universal God. Universal God screamed and used all his skills in an attempt to stop it. Peng! The heaven-suppressing seal landed on Universal God's hands, and with a loud explosion, his arms were blown to pieces. Universal God screamed, "Tian Dao, what are you doing? You are my incarnation, I can let you out, but I can also take you back." Tian Dao said calmly. The omnipotent God was shocked. He had a bad premonition and begged, "Don't." Too late. With a loud boom, the heaven-suppressing seal landed on Universal God's body, and he had no way to resist at all. The two words on the heaven-suppressing seal flickered, and seemed to have gained a bit of spirituality. Tang Zheng's expression changed as he saw through the clues. "You took Universal God into the heaven-suppressing seal, and raised its grade, right? Good eye. You have the hidden sword, and I have the heaven-suppressing seal. We are both saint weapons. Do you think we still have a chance of winning?" Tian Dao asked proudly. Tang Zheng did not comment. Whether we have a chance of winning or not, we will see soon. Swoosh. The hidden sword flew out, and Tang Zheng disappeared, becoming one with the sword. Whoosh. The heaven-suppressing seal flew towards the hidden sword. It was not big, but the terrifying power it gathered was chilling, as if the sky was falling down. Peng. The two swords and seals clashed, and sparks flew everywhere. No one was at an advantage. The hidden sword was like the wind and lightning, and as fast as lightning, it turned back and left marks on the heaven-suppressing seal. The heaven-suppressing seal trembled slightly, and suddenly changed direction, smashing onto the hidden sword. The hidden sword bent into a huge arc, as if it was about to break. Wang. The hidden mystic sword deflected the seal of heaven suppression away. Tang Zheng's figure appeared. He held the hidden sword in his hand and stared at the heaven-suppressing seal like a tiger watching its prey. He said, "Heavenly Tao, although you don't have a physical body, I know you can take human form. Why don't you show yourself openly? Who do you want me to become?" Whoosh. The air fluctuated, and Fang Shusha appeared in front of him. Tang Zheng's eyelids twitched as he bellowed, "Change back. You're not allowed to taint Shusha. Ha ha ha, you've reminded me. You have so many important people. If I turn into them one by one, can you still bear to kill them?" As he spoke, whoosh whoosh whoosh, the surrounding air began to tremble. Familiar faces appeared one after another. Yi Dingdang, Liu Qingmai, Mu Hongyang, Wu He, and Li Xiaotian all looked at Tang Zheng with smiles on their beautiful faces. Tang Zheng was furious as he roared, "Heavenly Tao, you're digging your own grave. Then you'll have to pass this first." Heavenly Tao was not afraid at all. His voice stopped abruptly, and then, a familiar voice came out from everyone's mouth. "Tang Zheng, don't hurt me. Don't look at me like that. It's so scary." One by one, they begged pitifully, but they approached Tang Zheng step by step and reached out to grab him. Tang Zheng did not move as he watched them approach. Looking at the familiar faces and voices, his heartstrings trembled a few times. Seeing that they were within reach, Tang Zheng's eyes flashed and he attacked like lightning. Bang bang bang! Palm after palm hit their bodies, all of them exploded and turned into a chaotic flow. They did not even have time to scream. Tang Zheng snorted and said, "Heavenly Tao, you think you can disturb my mind by changing their appearance? You're wrong. You can only change their appearance, but you don't have any of their charm. You're not them at all. How can you disturb my mind?" "Amazing, amazing." Heavenly Tao sighed and changed the topic, "But so what? Once I kill you, none of the people around you will be able to escape. All of them will accompany you." Tang Zheng was unmoved and said with killing intent, "Then I have to destroy you even more." Whoosh. Tang Zheng firmly locked onto Heavenly Tao. The hidden profound sword was aimed at him and stabbed over. The heaven-suppressing seal was extremely fast and blocked the hidden profound sword. Both sides fought more and more fiercely, but no one could do anything to the other. The sky gradually became bright. The earth-shattering battle had long alarmed the crowd. Mortals only dared to watch from afar as the morning sun shone on them. The complicated expressions on their faces could be seen clearly. "Ha ha ha, Tang Zheng, didn't you claim to be the savior of the world? Then I'll fulfill your wish once more." Heavenly Tao laughed. Boom. With a loud sound, the heaven-suppressing seal flew towards the crowd. Before it even got close, the ground had already collapsed, unable to withstand the terrifying power of the heaven-suppressing seal. The crowd screamed and ran in all directions, but there was no way to escape the attack range of the heaven-suppressing seal. Tang Zheng turned pale with fright. The Heavenly Tao was too cunning, it actually attacked innocent humans. "Shameless!" Tang Zheng roared. The hidden profound sword flew out and turned into a ray of light. Rays of sword light intertwined and formed a sword net above everyone's head. Boom! The heaven-suppressing seal hit the sword net and the sword net broke into pieces. The hidden profound sword bitterly held on and did not retreat even half a step. The heaven-suppressing seal closed in, causing the hidden profound sword to suffer. Tang Zheng also did not have it easy as his face became pale. "Ha ha ha, this is the taste of being the savior of the world. I really don't know what you're thinking. They're just a group of mortals. It's fine to use them, but you're willing to sacrifice yourself to save them? What's the point? Heavenly Tao mocked. I'm a human. I, Tang Zheng, naturally have to save my people. Tang Zheng clenched his teeth and retorted. His voice was like thunder, exploding in everyone's ears and imprinting in their hearts. It's him. The savior. The crowd was freed from the heaven-suppressing seal, but they did not escape immediately. Instead, they screamed in realization and pointed at Tang Zheng. Although a period of time had passed since the end of the world, and Tang Zheng was fighting fiercely with Heavenly King Hao in the ninth heaven, most people would not be able to see it clearly. However, at some point in time, the name of the person who turned the tide had spread. People called him the savior, but they had not seen him in person. Now, they finally knew that the blurry young man in mid-air was the savior. They were both surprised and happy. Bang, bang, bang. Everyone knelt down and kowtowed to Tang Zheng. They did not care about the crisis in front of them. Long live the savior! People shouted loudly and sincerely. Haha, what a bunch of ignorant ants. Death is at hand and you're still kowtowing. Heavenly Tao snorted and said disdainfully. Tang Zheng was burning with anxiety. He kept waving his hand and shouted, "You guys leave quickly. It's dangerous here. I'll deal with Heavenly Tao." The savior does not care about his own danger and bravely fights a strong enemy. It's admirable. People's hearts surged with stormy waves as they firmly remembered Tang Zheng's vague appearance. Which god in the world is more efficacious than the savior? He is really protecting us. This is something that can be seen and touched. It's not something that those illusory gods can compare to. When I go back, I'll build a golden body for the savior and worship him in the cultivation field. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.